Drop the beat.
I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never. 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 I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I never liked him.
Drop the beat.
I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never. 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 I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I never liked him.
Drop the beat.
I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never. 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 I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I never liked him.
All right. Oof. Got plenty to talk about in this next few hours. First things first. I don't know if I'm gonna make a segment. We'll see. Quick thumbnail. So, there's been a lot of conversation in regards to the left, right? And of course, I've had a leftist on recently, and we spoke about the state of affairs and the perception gap and people's dissatisfaction for certain things regarding the Democratic Party. I do think something interesting to know, at the very least, worthwhile talking about, is this kind of new infighting regarding DSA, Hasan Piker type individuals, and the Democrats have just been rejuvenated. And basically, what I wanted to look into is Brad put up this post. I just read through the DSA's new platform. It is the most utopian, dystopian, batshit insane thing I've ever read. It includes no more bills for anyone, government-run fund, food, housing, medicine, transportation, nationalizing all other large corporations and essential industries, the drafting of a new constitution, defunding the Department of War, slavery reparations, a bunch of stuff. Now, I didn't know the platform, and I'm not too willing to take things that some people say at face value. So I think it was, for me, important to look at their platform. I also heard something recently in regards to the conversation regarding the leftists, the far left. When we're thinking about the fight against the MAGA administration, Donald Trump and the fascists, is it a conversation that we should be having where it's like we got to defeat MAGA, or is it a conversation of liberal versus illiberal people? Hello from Russia. That makes me concerned. So liberalism versus illiberalism, and it's not the liberalism in the sense that people just determine center left political people as liberal as more of a misnomer of a very clear identification on the scale, versus the true essence of the definition of liberalism, which aligns with values of personal liberty and everything that kind of encompasses that. Because in its truest sense. When you think of Western democratic nations, they are liberal nations. So sometimes that term can be a little bit bastardized. So let's look at this platform and let's see if Brad is correct, and let's see if the DSA is really on our side. The hat is tight, not a good way. Base. I'm not even wearing a hat. So imagine take a day off from work in a future without capitalism. All right. So right off rip, it might not feel as badly needed as it does now. You enjoy your work. It's interesting to you and you're well trained for it. Your work as much as you're able and no more than needed, and you would control your own labor and see it go into good use. It's not just a job to pay the bills. So they're talking about how in this situation, talking about work and work's only value is not something that you need to do to provide for your well-being, but something you can do because you enjoy the activities that are being done. And although I understand the concept of enjoying the work you do, work is also a necessity to ensure that people are being active in the system. So, but this doesn't really mean much to me. Speaking of bills, you really don't have them anymore. You don't have bills anymore. You have no debt. You don't need health insurance. You don't pay a mortgage or have a landlord because comfortable housing is a human right. Your retirement is publicly funded. Food, education, energy, medicine, transportation are for profit businesses. They are common goods and utilities. You have no debt. We do have a debt culture. So it is appealing to not rely on debt, not rely on credit, I guess. Can an economy survive without the need to pay everything up front? No, because we kind of moved past that, right? We've moved past the very simplistic exchange of currency. The debt based currency allows us to do a bit more ambitious projects while things are still being paid. So you have no debt. Hard to say. That's a little bit vague and doesn't really make sense. You don't need health insurance because it's Medicare for all. Now, Medicare for all is free healthcare for all. Free healthcare for all is a human right. Interesting. Interesting indeed. I mean, if you're going to advocate for free healthcare for all, even though you necessarily don't have to pay for health insurance, everybody needs to be taxed more. That's the only way a system like this exists, right? Health insurance needs to be paid for. It needs to be funded. The doctors, the nurses, the equipment, the training, the medicine, all needs to be funded. So in order for this to happen, for free healthcare, taxes need to go way up. You don't pay a mortgage or have a landlord. So you don't have to pay for health insurance. You have no debt. You don't have to worry about work. And you don't have to pay for your house. That doesn't really make sense to me. It's like lofty ideals that don't really give a realistic plan for how things should work. Paid for by taxing rich and corporations. So the rich is just going to pay for everything. So if nobody works and then nobody has to pay for bills, that means eventually the rich people won't exist because you won't be the concept of money at that point completely deteriorates. So the idea of taxing the rich, again, they're very simplistic. They stole everything. The rich just stole everything. No, that's not true. I have a lot of issues with the 1%, the elites. I think they are not paying their fair share. But the way they got so rich is also because of the consumption of the goods. And the only way you got consumptions of the goods is if you had enough money to buy the goods. Right? Uh, So we don't have to work, but we have no bills, but the rich is going to pay for everything. But how is the rich going to make their money? It doesn't really make sense at the end of the day. Your retirement is publicly funded. So how is your retirement publicly funded if you don't have to work? Like, where is the money coming from? I just don't. Food, education, energy, medicine, transport aren't for profit businesses. I mean, this at the very least is saying aren't for profit businesses. They have to be funded in a way. I agree. Well, food is not. So you can't make money getting food. Education being education should not be a for-profit businesses. So obviously that's defunding a lot of universities. Energy bills. Interesting conversation. Medicine. Like a lot of these trillionaires should not exist. I agree. There's only one. But what this platform is stating to me is stating a platform of non-existent economy. We're not just taking money away from the wealthy, we are taking money away from the system. If this platform just said, like, tax them more and we can have a conversation on what that means, that is one thing. This is getting rid of core elements that makes an economy. Thumbs up. Jen, how's it going? Okay, multi-billionaires should not exist. I think there's a legitimate conversation, at the very least, curbing the amount of billionaires that exist. Yes, the first part of the title. Is the DSA and Hasan the enemy? Brad Palumbo put up that these guys are having this idea, but we have you can't call yourself democratic socialist if you don't believe in a democratic system under the framework of a mixed capitalist framework. This is just pure socialism. This is not DSA. This is just socialism. This is SA. SA is crazy. Billionaire existence doesn't stop you from being successful either. The poor are not stopping you either. Not exactly sure what you're referring to there. This is kind of crazy. Speaking of, like, if this is saying you don't have to work, or you only can work when you want to, and you don't have to pay bills for multiple utilities, how the fuck are you paying for these things? Because in order for you to get these things, taxes need to go up. And people are going like, okay, just tax the billion. The billionaires won't exist under this system. It's impossible for a billionaire to exist under the system. I hope people know this. And maybe that's what people want. But all these goods for utilities, all these will not exist either if we don't have people who make money. We need people. We don't need. I can argue we probably don't need billionaires, but we need people working in order to fund this system. If billionaires should not exist, you must tax them. Then they won't exist. And then who the fuck is paying for all of this? If you don't have to pay for these things, who's paying for it? Because people have to get taxed. And I want people to understand. Let me look this up. Scandinavian tax rates. Because the go-to is always comparing ourselves to Scandinavian countries, which is inappropriate because we are not them. They're smaller. They're more homogeneous. They're a different type of country, even though they follow like liberal principles. They're also not a socialist country. They're all mixed capitalist countries, just like us. Scandinavian countries are well known for their broad social safety nets and their public funding of services such as universal health care, higher education, parental leave, and child and elderly care. High levels of government spending naturally require high levels of taxation. In 2024, Denmark's tax to GDP ratio was 45.2%. Compare that to United States is 25.6%. We are going to have to double taxes in America and they use that to pay for the system. What the DSA platform is also saying, you don't have to work. This doesn't make sense. It's a fucking ridiculous platform. There's no logic to it. Okay, enough about bills. What do you do for your day off? Maybe in the morning you walk your kids to school, run errands, or go to a doctor's appointment. In the afternoon, you might play a sport, practice a new skill. If you're not working, how are you paying for... Yo, I need us to live... I need political organizations to live in reality, please. Can we live in reality? Can we live in real life? I want these things too. In order for these things to exist, I am expecting a system, a society where people make more money in the middle class and in the lower class, but they're also getting taxed more, and the top percentage is getting taxed more. I'm expecting we all make money, we're involved into the system, but we're still paying for stuff. How am I trying to sell you communism? Eric, are you fucking stupid? I am arguing against it right in real time. Jesus Christ. So bot coded. Anti-capitalist arguments are insane when you give them even a tiny bit of scrutiny. You're talking about against the DSA people? It's just, I appreciate some of the things that they advocate for because it's like people focus, but there's no logic into the economic system that they're trying to create. It doesn't work. If you attack the rich, you take away their drive. Why bust your butt if it just gets taken away? I mean, we got to tax the rich, obviously. We need taxes for a system. But if you're just going to take their money away, then that's a different story. I'm not advocating for that. Everybody should be paying taxes. Everybody should be paying their fair share. Their fair share is really the question. I mean, DSA are capitalist for the most part, just heavily regulated ones. DSA capitalist? This is the DSA platform. This is not a capitalist platform. This is not a capitalist platform at all. No work. You don't have to pay bills. You can go out and just enjoy your life every single day and then enjoy these luxuries. But how the fuck are these luxuries being paid for if you don't? So you might play a sport. Where are you going to play the sport? You're going to play basketball at a basketball court? Who's paying for the basketball court? Or a soccer field? Who's paying for the soccer field? Or you're going to a gym? Who's paying for the gym? Practice a new skill. Who's teaching you the new skill? Are you teaching yourself? Unlikely. You're probably learning it from somewhere. Where are you learning it from? Read. Who's creating the book you can read? Plan a trip. Who is paying for the transportation? Who is paying for the luxuries you're going to do at your trip? Go to the movies. Who's paying for the movies? Who's paying for the park? Come on. Every day, a socialist day off could be like any good day, but what if you're free to spend your time how you like? This society doesn't fucking work. This is delusional. It's easier to imagine the end of the world, whatever. The world ends chaos, but it's all going according to plan. We can see their plan in the countless heartbreaking images coming out of war zones like Beirut, Gaza, and Tehran. We can hear the rumbles of bulldozers making way to build detention camps and data centers. Man, data centers are part of the platform. We can feel it in the air as the summer heat becomes unbearable in the pits of our stomachs when faced with the price of gas and rent. We're promised magical technology with AI, but in reality, the bosses lay us off work and track our every move. The billionaire class is dividing workers against each other, and it's making us desperate and miserable. The political and economic system under which we live in is built on private ownership and profit at all costs. Not profit at all costs, but it can be criticized. I'm fine with criticizing our current system, but it's making capitalism the enemy and then getting rid of it for socialism is stupid. This reads like a manifesto, right? The DSA platform, apparently this is recently updated. So maybe they thought our opportunity after we won a couple of races in some of these elections and with the momentum because of the idea of the blue wave during the midterms, the idea is that they can get more unhinged with their philosophies. and maybe create more momentum. I want us to realize that communism and socialism is extremely unpopular in America. And if anything, just because there's some ambitious policies that I do think are interesting on the left, on the progressive left, doesn't mean that the ideas overall would work. There's two things that people need to realize. One, there's no successful country that's ever worked with communism. Two, communism is the number one utilized, or one of the biggest utilized political identifiers to create an enemy for people that live in a liberal nation or just live in a nation that is kind of dissatisfied. That's what both fascist nations use to rise Hitler and Mussolini into power. And Trump obviously is a fascist, but if we create a system where it seems like to the average person that communists are rising in power, you're just going to give them more leverage. And the third thing is, and I've said this before, and I'm going to pull this up so people understand where I'm coming from. There was a separation regarding like the socialist platform, where there was a separation from Marxism because of the idea of the workers owning the means of production just doesn't work. And that separation is honestly what probably galvanized the DSA, or at the very least the democratic socialist movement in the West. And the premise is utilizing populist messaging for the most part, but never really endowing the core elements of socialism and communism because of its fallacies and its honestly ineffectiveness. What is communism, socialism? I mean, communism, socialism is owners owning the means of production. That's like the easy definition. Much closer economically to fascism than free market capitalism, but they'll say fascism is right wing inherently. Yes. I mean, it's kind of crazy of like a government just owning and controlling everything. I mean, that's the core elements of how communist countries work in the first place. You empower the workers, and then obviously individuals take power, and then those individuals just become the ones to control everything, and then we end up in a Maoist system. But here, let me find exactly what I'm looking for. Um, who is the person from Marxism to create? Focuses on messaging. I saw this recently, but I forget what it's called. Philosopher emerged from Marx, but has developed a post-Marxist approach that integrates psychoanalysis, cultural theory, and political messaging. Yeah, so I'm gonna trust this AI version. Actually, can I just maybe let me just go. His name is Slavoj. Let me see if this is who I'm thinking of. um Theoretical space, political theory, ideology, freedom, theology. As stated, we reject 20th century as total opponents stated the communism, the 20th wars, or the phenomenon referred to as Stalinism, are maybe the worst in the history of humanity. It justifies this choice by claiming that the only existing order. So I think this is what I'm talking about. This is the individual. What is my question? So there was this is what I was referring to. So one thing that I've saw recently, I was either watching or reading up on it, I forget exactly. There was a break in Marxist thinking. And one figure that kind of aligned with like current way or like not even current, because the DSA is kind of getting unhinged, and we'll continue to go over that. One person who kind of broke up from the Marxist framework was Slavoj Zizek. We rather have Project 2025. Are you fucking? You know how much I've talked about Project 2025, KMA? Don't fuck with me, bro. Don't fuck with me. I criticize that Project 2025 fascist framework all the time. Don't fuck with me. Um, Contemporary philosopher and political commentator emerged from a Marxist background, but developed a post-Marxist approach that interrogates psychoanalysis, cultural theory, and political messaging. It often frames political struggle as of a battle over symbolic meanings and ideological framing, making messaging central to his analysis of power resistance. This is most likely what I was referring to. And then he even talks about here, even though he adopts the title of radical leftist and communist, he rejects 20th century communism as a total failure and has stated the communism of the 20th century, more specifically, all of the network of phenomenon were referred to as Stalinism, or maybe the worst ideological, political, ethical, social catastrophe in the history of humanity. So that break is something that is notable, but it seems like we're kind of returning to like the worst parts of communism that makes absolutely no sense. Is nothing more than a think tank wish list. It doesn't really mean much. I disagree there, Grim. Project 2025 is an active framework that is being utilized to enforce unitary executive theory in real time. And that it's not a wish list. It's already happening. A lot of it, of the Project 2025 playbook, has been happening. Britt or Umberto Eco or something like that are the ones who created the definitions. I was looking at the definition. I was looking up the person who broke up. I found that the person I just showed you was the person. I recommend people to really look at that person up because they're the ones who really emphasize. They're the one. You're probably thinking of fascia. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're thinking of. But the guy that I just showed you, I'll show you again, is the one that really, honestly, is one of the pillars of adopting the populist messaging that appeals to the people, but he doesn't embody the core elements of what communism is, because as he said, that shit is awful. It doesn't work. It sucks. So there's something to it. There's something that was super appealing to Marxism that you can capture. You can capture in terms of the appeal to the people and the elites taking advantage of you. And there's truth to that. But if you're utilizing that truth to co-opt people under a false premise to destroy the institutions that currently exist, to create this fantasy world, then you're just going to create a self-destructive utopia that will never exist. Utopias don't exist. The Democrats have their own think tank wish list. Doesn't mean it will come about. Heritage founders have been writing them for decades. The Project 2025 formula has been happening. I'm not just talking about something that's a think tank wish list. We need to stop. We need to stop equivocating on different strategies that may be similar from both sides, but the intent behind one side is much more nefarious, and it is clearly degrading the institutions that democracy and liberalism was built on in America. But anyhow, let's continue with the DSA stuff. As capitalism fails to solve problems of its own, it turns to right-wing authoritarianism. Big businesses make deals with the government to line their pockets, and politicians stroke hatred between working people instead of offering real solutions to unemployment and cost of living. They attack immigrants, communities, colors, and trans people rather than fixing our broken healthcare system. They push snake oil and circulate conspiracy theories. Technically correct. The Republicans are in on it. The Democratic Party is asleep at the wheel. Not true. The Democratic Party have been fighting back against this consistently. So this is just not true. And both are funded by the same criminal class of billionaires and war profiteers. How can the DSA should just create their own party, right? Because at some point, if you just think the Democratic Party is as evil as the Republican Party, then why pretend that you're a Democrat? Isn't that a fair question to ask? Why are you pretending you're Democrat if your premise, if your philosophy, if the whole entire thing here is that Democrats are just as evil as Republicans because they're paid by the same people? Why pretend you're a Democrat? What's the point? We are a third party? No, you're fucking not. You run under the Democrat fucking epithet on ballots. You can run as independent. You guys don't run as independent. There's a reason why Hasan Piker was at a Democratic college doing a fucking speech. He wants to convert the Democratic Party. Just create your own fucking thing. Create your own fucking thing. If the Democrats are so bad, create your own thing and see how far that takes you. Democrats are socialists. You guys are not democratic socialists. You guys are just socialists. Stop. You're no longer democratic. There's nothing democratic about you guys. You guys are socialists. Socialists of America. We're taking the D out of there. Or we're removing the D out of DSA. You were just an SA. And that makes it worse. You're the SA organization. The Socialists of America organization. Kame, if you want your own party, I'm okay with it. Go ahead. Do what you gotta do. Create your own party. I'm not going to be mad at you. We live in America. Freedom of speech. Freedom of protest. You have the ability to express your own ideology. But stop fucking pretending you're Democrats. You're not. Socialists know, I'm not calling them Democrats socialists anymore. Socialists know that no one has to live like this. If we lived in classless society and governed ourselves, we could freely build a world without. This is delusion. A delusion, a classless society, governed yourself, delusion. That's a part. What? This is delusion. A classlessism, and you want no government. No government, people. We're full SAing. We're full socialists. Not we, them. They're full socialists. Lord of the Flies, it's ridiculous. We could build a world where no one suffers for their race, gender, or religion. Everyone is free, equal, and cared for. What do you think this is? You think we live in a video game where this idea of we need no government, we need no class, we'll just all be hold hands, kumbaya? You think that's how the world works? Hold hands, kumbaya? We're all going to be friends? No. That's not how the world works. Unfortunately, people are flawed individuals. World is guiding start of our movement. When we labor for our common good instead of private profit, we can all. You guys are relying on common good to run a society. Common good. We're all going to treat each other equal. We don't need government. We don't need class. We don't need work. We don't need to pay for anything. This is this society is awful. This is garbage. Our class must organize. The socialists, let's get rid of this. Socialists of America is building a party whose goal is a democratic. No, it's not a democratic society. Not a society of the working class. Stop pretending you're a Democrat. Our enemies are not just individual bosses, but the entire global system of capital based. Not just this or that cop, judge, or president, but the entire You're also anti-democratic. I just want to be very clear. You're an anti-democratic system. You're anti-democratic structure of our society. We are working, fighting to transform society to win the battle for democracy. You're not winning the battle for democracy. You're destroying democracy. Draft a new constitution and create a socialist republic. Jesus Christ. How can you have a democracy and a class society? Utter nonsense. That's what I'm saying. How do you have no government, no class, but also have a democracy? What if the people in the system want a system with a class, with a leader? The point of democracy is voting leaders. Well, you said you don't want to vote leaders. So how are you democracy? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. We're a social group, like social animals, but we also have leadership hierarchical structures that's just embedded into human beings. Like it just is. We have leaders. We've always had leaders in human history. Leaders are going to create a class. Leaders are going to create a government. It's just nonsensical. It's this kind of utopian idea, like world that doesn't exist. What is Social Security? Socialism? No, Social Security is something that can work in a mixed capitalist system. I praise Social Security. People called it socialism when it was initially implemented. I think we can create more systems like that. What this is advocating for is nothing. No systems. No systems. I'm okay. People need civics classes. Civics is not going to fix a system that what is civics if there's no fucking system? If there's no system, what is civics? What's the point of voting if you're not voting for a leader? What's the point of understanding how different governmental programs and institutions work if you want no government? Again, you're asking for things, but you don't really understand what you're asking for. You're asking for anarchy. Anarchy is the only way. Based. Very based. Very based indeed. Very based indeed. Like, if you don't want to live in a system, you guys can just move. You guys can just move. Leave America. Nobody gives a fuck if you leave. I promise you, nobody gives two shits if you leave America. Leave America. Go live in some of these other countries. Please. I don't want you here. I don't want to live under the same system that you want to live in. Leave America. Go live in some country in South America, some country in Africa, some country in East Asia, some country in East Europe. Go. Bye. See you later. Stop trying to destroy the country that we all are benefiting from just to push your bullshit. Bye. Leave. Go away. We don't want you here. Yeah. What we fight for: freedom to flourish, healthcare for all, housing for all, end mass incarceration and police immunity, feminism for all. It's crazy how they said they're pro-feminism, and I've seen some of them being some of the biggest feminist pigs I've ever seen, but I digress. See, okay, let me tell you what at the very least, not necessarily, okay, I'm going to put a scale, right? There is, I agree, I somewhat agree, or disagree, right? Or at the very least, I can understand. So it's like a three scale of agree, maybe I would alter it, disagree. Freedom to flourish, I don't know what the fuck this means. I'll be honest. Let us freedom to flourish. Freedom to flourish, expand public resources to support recreation, learning, social spaces accessible to all, establish paid family leave for all workers, a 32-hour work week with full pay and benefits, and a living minimum wage, provide free quality public education from pre-K to college, and cancel all student debt. Some of it I'll be like, I could work with this. Others I'm like, probably wouldn't work. So I'm like iffy on this one. Healthcare for all, iffy. I believe in a public option. Housing for all, iffy. I don't know about making housing free. I don't think that would work. Finish reconstruction. What does finish reconstruction mean? End the legacies of slavery and colonialism, reinforce anti-discrimination laws, honor all treaties and tribal sovereignty, enact reparations, and massively invest in good jobs, quality housing, and infrastructure, and neglected minority communities. I'm iffy on that one. Iffy on that one. End mass incarceration and police immunity. Iffy. Feminism for all. You can't force people to be feminists, so that doesn't really make sense. Green New Deal, 50-50. And the U.S. war machine. What the fuck does that mean? Trump is a pig. Agreed. You're gonna start here, then where? I'm just saying. I'm not saying we don't start. I am very pro political political revolution. End the U.S. war machine, defend the Department of War. No. So I disagree. Defunding the Department of War, honestly, change it back to the Department of State, but our Department of Defense. So yeah, disagree with ending the U.S. war machine because defending the department that is there to ensure that we could do a lot of like our military operations is stupid. That just allows our enemies to get more powerful than us. Like that doesn't make any fucking sense. Free Palestine. I advocate for a two-state solution. I know it's not possible because both sides don't want it, but end blockades, embargoes, and sanctions. End them? No, because you need them to pressure our enemies. That's stupid. Abolish ICE. I'm pro. I think ICE is fucked. Democracy for all. Everybody does have democracy. What does this mean? Extend full voting rights to all permanent U.S. residents. Restore the right to vote for incarcerated people and people with criminal convictions. Criminals get the right to vote? What? What? Nah, bro, come on. Come on. Criminals get the right to vote? Like, dead ass? Are we serious? Like, really? Establish statehood for Washington, D.C. Agreed, and recognize the right to self-determine all U.S. territories and colonies. At the very least for Puerto Rico. For a country, for a territory that's not next to the United States, I don't know about that. Yeah, that's a real democracy. I'm guessing this is direct representation. You would get rid of a republic. No, I think that's stupid. A democratic Congress. I'm assuming this is expanding the House of Representatives. Hopefully, that's what you mean. For the working class to govern, we need a new political system, end political corruption, legalize bribery. Agree. Get rid of lobbyists. Heavily regulate lobbyists. I wouldn't get rid of them. Get rid of dark money. I understand why you want to get rid of dark money. I'm okay with that. Citizens United. Fuck yes. Publicly finance all elections. Don't hate the premise. Abolish the Electoral College. Don't hate it. Replace the president, Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. No, that's fucking stupid. Like what? What? That's stupid. That's just such a stupid idea. Democratic Congress. Replace the two-partisan with a multi-party democracy. I'm more three parties. I think we should have a three-party system at the very least. I would potentially expand to multi-party depending on if it's realistic, because there's too many dangerous extremes that I'm not a big fan of. Obviously, right? Like far right Christian Nationalist Party, far left Communist Party, you know what I'm saying? Economic democracy and democracy at work. Establish public ownership of the largest corporations and essential industries to ensure. Oh, so they want to own the means of productions for all these corporations? No, that doesn't fucking work. Empower workers to come together and fight the boss, protect, expand, and enforce the rights of all workers to form, join, and strike with their support union members to organize. I mean, supporting unions I'm okay with, but what's the point of unions if the public owns? Like a lot of these things that they are advocating for are counterintuitive. It really doesn't make sense considering the society they want to create. It really doesn't. Name the far left. Leftists. Anti-American communists. I think that was pretty easy. Hasan Piker. So we just looked at the DSA platform, and I'll be honest, the DSA platform recently got updated. Our program was drafted between the months of April and June 2026. So this was updated recently. So this pretty much confirms that they think they have enough momentum to co-opt our democratic capitalist liberal system and turn it into a socialist anarchical system because they won a few seats. Man, I just hope. I know what I've been seeing recently is a lot of battles, a lot of fighting. That's it. That's Hasan Piker. Kim, can you be good faith? Did you hear what I said? I said far left anti-American communists, and then I named one dude, Hasan Piker. Like, come on, be good faith. Okay. So, in addition to this situation, I think there's a lot of concerning things about the DSA platform. No doubt about it. I don't. At this point, the DSA platform is not liberal. They're not pro-American. They're socialist, and they're not democratic at all. Personally, and no, objectively, they're not democratic anymore. So there's a lot of infighting between different sides of the aisle that I've seen, and one of those people that has been kind of dealing with a lot of backlash is David Pakman. So let me look at a clip of his.
Disease, the Democratic Party is showing the early signs of the same disease that destroyed the Republican Party. Republicans back in 2010, their leaders laughed at the Tea Party. The left and Democrats can't make the same mistake. There is a small group of far left extremists gaining influence inside youth groups and party organizations. There was a college Democrats convention, which I was actually invited to participate in, and I couldn't make it. Hasan Piker was dressed like Matt.
Is Mitch McConnell dead? Probably.
And I guess Destiny tried to show up, and he was banned from entering allegedly because the Mao-dressed Piker didn't want him there. Republicans are going to put these clips everywhere. Like, people seem crazy when they see this stuff, and they are going to abolish the police and abolish borders and abolish prisons and play them on a loop for 6 months. Democrats must act now and intelligently. The centrists don't really do anything, make very milquetoast fringe suggestions that you don't even really push for. Not working, okay? This other thing of like end everything, it's a sort of destructive accelerationism, that's also not going to work. So I think that what we need here are no apologetics for dictatorship, no apologetics for authoritarianism, no harassment, no anti-Semitism, no allowing online factions to decide which liberals may enter the room. You know, what would I even have been allowed at that college Democrats thing? They invited me months ago. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't go, so we didn't find out. I've said before, I've never been a Democrat. I don't care about the Democratic Party beyond who offers the better candidates, and usually it's Democrats over Republicans. But we've got to make sure that we don't allow that party, if it is the vessel, at least for now, to something better than what Republicans are offering, to be hijacked.
And I agree. I agree with the sentiment. I've said this too, that I don't call myself a Democrat purely because I don't really care about the labels. My political ideology is my own, but we live in a unique time where MAGA are very bad. They're destroying America, and it's very dangerous. And now we are living in a time where there is more energy and momentum for people who are dressing like Mao, like Hasan Piker, who's trying to co-opt the Democratic Party and a platform, a political movement in the DSA that's very clearly not democratic anymore. They're communists. That they're trying to push this, like, some good stuff, but ultimately the general premise of the the platform that they're trying to create is one without a government, without class and owners owning the means of production, and this doesn't work. And it's crazy that he would even play the game of pretending to be like Mao, and also try to co-opt a democratic school or college and kick out other people to prevent them from going in and asking him questions. It's cowardly, it's pathetic, it's disgusting. And if people don't realize the dangers of what like Mao has done, Mao has killed a lot of people. Like if you I've said this multiple times. If you like are emotionally like sad, very sympathetic to what the Palestinians are going through. And I understand their history is complicated. Trust me, I know quite a bit about that. But I understand when people feel that these kids, these people are dying, regardless of the complexity of the conflict, because Hamas is a terrorist organization and the IDF and Israel and Netanyahu, people losing their lives and seeing them lose their lives day by day on the internet is going to affect you emotionally. And I sometimes we miss the human element, but it kills me that that same type of energy is not being reciprocated to a conflict like the Ukraine war. And it kills me when we don't recognize that the movement, the philosophy that you are trying to advocate for, communism, was also responsible for some of the most deadliest periods in human history. It makes me think, and obviously this does not apply to everybody who are pro-Palestinian, who are leftist. This does not apply to all of you. But I would argue it applies to someone like an Hasan Piker and maybe people aligned with him. Dressing up like Mao? Are we serious? Are we serious? Was Scholars believe that Mao in some way was involved in the death of at least 40 million and possibly as many as 80 million people. Do people know what China's doing right now to the Uyghurs? They're in concentration camps. So it makes me think that this entire game that Hasan Piker likes to play is a faux pas. It is a movement. It is a push to acquiesce power into his philosophy, thinking that this is going to save the world, but in reality, it's not. It's going to destroy it, as it has time and time again. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about for the stream. It's quite crazy, dare I say, quite crazy indeed that is going on. I actually did want to look into this. I have a couple tools that I want to look into before I start watching some interviews / debates. I use one platform called Vote. What if I could model anything? I don't even know what this is. Never mind. I'm not going to waste my time on that right now. All right, let's look into this. Trump killed Charlie Kirk, exploding microphone into his neck. Oh, you believe the Candace Owens conspiracies? Okay. What are we going to watch first? Let's watch this crazy Nick Fuentes Hunter Biden one, huh?
You said you want.
Ugh. Thumbnail image. Hunter Biden, Nick Fuentes. I know those two names being in the same sentence doesn't really make a lot of sense, but apparently they were recently doing an interview. Why? I have no fucking idea, but that's our current political landscape. Interviewing Hunter Biden and Nick Fuentes. So let's dive right into it. Someone says China has not made the mistakes of the Soviet. China is a communist on the inside, a capitalist on the outside. Current China is not as communist as it has been, but Mao is not. Mao is obviously the worst parts of communism.
Want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Inclusion has been our greatest strength. Diversity has been our greatest strength.
White people do feel like we are being boxed out.
A 26-year-old white kid doesn't feel like he has access because he's been canceled, and the problem is black people.
I didn't say the problem's black people.
Well, you just did, Nick. You just
I
said
said the problem is crime, and we know who's doing the crime in Chicago.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
About the Holocaust things?
Oh, about that.
We get to say whatever we want on the internet. We get to deny the Holocaust.
As far as Jews are concerned in general, I think that everybody in the country should be treated with dignity and respect and have their civil rights.
Like, what do you think about somebody like Mamdani?
Personally, I don't like him. Like, for example, on 4th of July, when he takes the opportunity to sit there with, let's be honest, not a single white person.
What about fucking Donald Trump? There's no ideological core to Donald Trump.
No, I agree with you.
Don Jr. got the largest loan ever given by the Department of Defense.
Vance owes his entire political career to Peter Thiel, whichever firm is the one to develop ASI. That could confer dictatorial-like powers upon the CEO of that company.
Everything that we think about the way in which we exist in the world completely changes.
Increasingly with Uber, Airbnb, banking apps, you can't.
How long is this freaking intro?
Well, there. Mine is true. Yeah.
Yeah, my mind's a little true. Maybe a little, no. But yeah, so I think it'd be good to clear up some of the misrepresentations and put out something accurate.
So what do you think is the most misrepresented thing about you?
Well, I think really the whole image everybody has about me. You know, when you mentioned me, I think on a recent show, you said you want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Yeah.
And that's how everybody knows me. Everybody thinks of me as a white supremacist Nazi. And I don't think that's really true at all. I think that we definitely have different values. I mean, you're more from the left, I'm more from the right. But I don't think I'm a hater. I'm not a hateful person.
It is Heil Hitler Friday. Heil Hitler. All my niggas Nazis. Morgan.
Hitler was very fucking cool.
Yes, I do.
One of them.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
So what's the thing about, I guess, traditional Nazism?
I love how they included those clips. It's one thing if you've grown past your mistakes of your past. It's one thing if you've went down a wrong path because of, you know, outside factors really pushing you into this type of nihilism that makes someone or everyone the enemy. And then you obviously grow past that. Growth and forgiveness are core elements of Christianity. And I do think are very important elements for a society to move on and for a person to move forward. That's important to note. I don't believe that's what's going on with Fuentes. I believe this is a grift. Because there's no way you say what you say. You clearly have said things that make people not only think, but know that you are either fanatic of Hitler or you are very clearly anti-Semitic to Jewish people. The words you say, the context of how you put it, the audience you cultivate. So the response to everything that is said about you shouldn't be, these are not true. It should be, I've grown past that. Him saying that these are not true, trying to change his image, that's a grift. That is trying to appeal to a normie audience, a mainstream audience, to ensure that you can acquire more power, especially politically, and maybe manifest your ideas in real time. So, yeah, I don't believe Fuentes has changed. I think Fuentes is still bad and evil. And I think he's grifting. You got a sub and a like. Appreciate you, KMA. Appreciate you. The backpedaling is crazy. I agree.
that you think you disagree with the most?
Well, it's a non-Christian ideology. So, I mean, look, I believe that race is real, as the Nazis did, but I don't think it utterly defines a person. As a Christian, I think we're all created beings. I do believe there's such a thing as a universal human community. And so I think it's a cruel ideology. I said this on my show, by the way, but I mean, that would maybe be the fundamental.
Did you always feel that way?
Always, yeah, absolutely.
So even whenever you were younger and stuff?
I did. But, you know, you got to recognize times have changed. 10 years ago, we had a totally different political world. The regulation and policing of speech, you know, what you would call wokeness, I think was at an all-time high when I got started as a very young man.
What would you call wokeness?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think, I mean,
Do you make clips and share these on TikTok and Twitter? We need to find a scandal or something to get you into so we can get people over here watching. I do post clips. My clips actually sometimes do extremely well, but I don't think I do a good job to kind of reroute them back into my streams, honestly. So it's I'm getting out there in different ways. I'm getting out there. I also don't stream very consistently, so I need to stream more consistently for sure, and get into more panels and debates. And Jen, I'll give you some insight. I have a huge content creator that is coming on my stream. A big content creator is coming on my stream on Monday. So I'm still doing well, but you know, once I become a more consistent streamer, we'll get those numbers up.
would you not
Well,
say
maybe
there
yeah,
were
maybe
some
yeah, yeah.
excesses maybe in those days?
Yeah, you know, in those days, I wasn't doing too well, so I wasn't paying much attention. Anyway, I would love to hear, and I'm not asking you to like retract everything that you've ever said and all, you know, or anything, but I said that I would love to talk to you because number one, I told you this, is that I think you're really smart, and I think that with that comes in a real responsibility, and you have an audience. And I have a friend whose son is my daughter's age, you know, maybe 28, you know, your age, and he's really smart, and he is a big fan of yours. And so by virtue of the relationship, I got to learn what it is that why he is a fan of yours.
I should
email
it.
I hope you agree.
See what I can
Really
do.
egregious things that
I
you said
should email
about the Holocaust or about, you know.
Did the Jews ever talk about the 100 million whites that died in World War II? Or do they just bitch and moan about the so-called 6 million Jews that died?
And so it's just nice to poke holes in it and say, it's not 6 million.
6 million? I don't think so.
And I don't even know. I think I've heard you since kind of rescind a lot of that.
You concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust.
Possibly more.
Yeah, Adam
Possibly,
Mossberg.
you know, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
But what he agrees with is kind of the anger about the situation that particularly your generation finds yourself in. I know that to be real. And I think that there, you know, maybe my reasons for recognizing that anger as being legitimate and my targets are different than yours. I just want to hear from you. When you say you're canceled by the right in 2016.
Yes.
I almost felt like in preparing to meet you now, is that your reaction to that was to just dig deeper and deeper into kind of the outsider kind of radical say anything for the purpose of generating, you know, the attention to build an audience. Is that true? And it's not an accusation. I really mean it. I want this to be a conversation as much as possible.
I mean, that
You know, I understand the idea of kind of de-escalating. So people need to understand this. A conversation is only worthwhile if you can get substance out of the conversation itself. The screaming back and forth is really only a game that people benefit based off, you know, PR purposes. Me in a debate making someone look stupid only just makes me look good to the general populace and my effectiveness to resonate a message or put out a point. But the value of the conversation itself is almost meaningless depending on what we're talking about. A conversation can really get into a conversation is more focused on individual interactions, really understanding the other point of view, and maybe even dissecting points that really break the shell of who this person is. A debate is more so value to the people watching the debate itself. Very different, have different value. My thing is, though, when I know this person is like bad faith and a bad character, what's the value of a conversation? I would honestly change the structure of what is being talked about. Instead of a conversation, I think the value of a interrogation is more worthwhile, where you're grilling them and forcing them to answer hard questions. So I don't know if this is Hunter Biden trying to appeal to a certain level of nuance in this new space, but I just think this is the wrong approach for someone like a Nick Fuentes. Who knows? Can't have a conversation with MAGA. Most MAGA, I agree. There's some exceptions. Communist dictators erase culture for seeing that now in America, you can't run a country on feelings. I agree. You can't run a country on feelings, indeed.
there's certainly some truth to that.
However, understanding emotions is extremely important.
But I think that might be overstating it a little bit, because I really got canceled by the right and the left.
Yeah.
And back in those days in 2017, you had these far left journalists at Huffington Post, Right Wing Watch, ADL, SPLC. And I really believe they were on a mission to find extremist rhetoric, the white nationalist, neo-Nazi boogeyman, all that kind of stuff. And they would look at someone like myself, 18, and if I was being serious or joking, things taken out of context, they would clip it, post it, and they wanted me to be the villain. And I think they wanted a lot of people to be the villain. I think the left, in a way, kind of created this climate where I think they pushed a lot of people farther to the right.
No, by the way, that very well may be true, but you gave them a lot of ammunition.
That's true.
You know, I mean, I hope that some of those things that you said in the past are not things that you believed in and that are you meant just to engender like a really radical kind of response. I mean, is that true or no?
Well, you know, again, I think that back in those days, you could not say anything. In 2017, 2018, cancel culture was so in overdrive. Any joke, any edgelording, anything like that, they would, first of all, there's no sense of humor.
I'm so old. I don't even.
Okay, well, to break it down for you, so the dawn of wokeness as it's known today, I think, was in like the post-Trump era. After Trump won the election in 2016, there was a big movement to deplatform and kind of push away those who, I guess, the left feel like had galvanized them into the presidency. So there was this big idea that if you push people off mainstream social media platforms, they would go away. Now we know through Trump's re-election, that's not even true. But at the time, that was the mantra. Problematic viewpoints needed to be silenced, tucked away somewhere, and they would just sort of die in isolation. So I think that was the climate where you first got started. 2017, that time period was like crucial for getting people off mainstream platforms. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I would say that you got to get into the psychology of those days. It felt like anybody that wasn't on board with the most progressive agenda had no options. There was just no alternative.
Edgy jokes is one thing. Intentional, abhorrent attacks on people is a different thing. Obviously, there's been kind of a revisionist look at the woke culture stuff that was happening, and people were taking it too far, for sure, trying to cancel people for things either they said in their past or didn't intentionally say it in current time as a means to hurt people. However, there were people that were saying things that were destructive, disgusting, and meaning to hurt people, attack people, demean people. That was happening. We got to pretend that it wasn't. And the idea of looking into people's past to determine whether they're a piece of garbage, that was effective. That was important. Because also we have a normalized culture from back in the day where things that weren't a joke, but are obviously often used as a joke nowadays when you pacify the normalization of, you know, attacks on women and sexual assaults and, you know, the pedophilic, disgusting nature of some other institutions. These were not jokes back then. They were used as a joke, like the Catholic priest joke, right? You know, the shady Hollywood director joke, right? But these are things that were actually happening. And that's why these movements had so much power, is because victims finally felt comfortable enough in the current cultural atmosphere to speak up. They spoke up, and the disgusting pieces of garbage like Cosby, R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, Epstein, these people were getting justice. So it's a misnomer to really look at that period of time as this simplistic idea of people on the internet being mad that you said the N-word 10 years ago. That's not the reality of what was actually taking place and why this movement started in the first place. It's always a combination of different factors, but people try to simplify it to ensure that they are a victim of the period of the period itself, which is just not true. Thank you for my TED Talk. When Trump dies, MAGA will have to crawl back under the rocks. We'll see. Still are. What I mean is all the fucked up shit they are doing. The initial implementation of wokeness is thinking beyond the current system of oppression that existed, especially for Black people back in the day, which was objectively true. But we kind of bastardized the language, and it's been co-opted by MAGA. Nick Fuentes is rejected by the left because he's known white supremacist, just like the other 87% white supremacist groups that votes Republican. It's cooked.
It was going to be progressive, liberal, feminist, BLM, all that kind of stuff. And if you were to the right of John McCain, you're no platformed, censored, banned from all the platforms, you're fired from your job, you're ostracized socially. And I think what happened really in 2021 when Trump got banned from the platforms is it felt like 70 million people got canceled. 70 million people that voted for Trump, or 60, 70 million people. We were all felt like, oh, so if Trump is out of politics and we're all banned from the platforms, then how is there any redress for our grievances? Do we just have to shut up and get with the program and we're all going to be progressive? And I think that drove people to a far more radical place where people.
Let's. Why was Donald Trump banned from Twitter? I think a lot of people forgot the reason why this man was banned from Twitter in the first place. But let's remind ourselves why Donald Trump was banned from Twitter. So, Twitter's permanently suspend Trump's account. Twitter said the decision was made after close review of recent tweets from the Trump account. It comes amid a big tech purge of the online platforms used by Trump and his supporters. Some lawmakers and celebrities have been calling it for years on Twitter to ban Trump. Former First Lady Michelle Obama tweeted on Thursday that the Silicon Valley giant should stop enabling Trump's monstrous behavior. Why was Trump banned? Trump was locked out of his account for 12 hours after he called the people who stormed the U.S. Capitol patriots. The reason why Donald Trump was banned from Twitter is because of everything he did to incite, galvanize, and push the attack on the White House on January 6th. If this is not a reason to ban someone from a social media platform so he can't create or message to a group of people to do violent actions, or at the very least instigate them to do violent actions, then what the fuck is? What is? Stop acting like Donald Trump's a fucking victim. You got a group of people who try to overthrow the government. Cry me a fucking river. You were banned on Twitter. And then you create your own far-right social media platform that is only pushing Donald Trump's messaging and Truth Social. Get the fuck out of here.
People said, well, what really is a solution? We can't talk. We can't express ourselves. We can't participate in the process or run for office. And I was one of the people saying that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to drive people to extremism. If you don't talk, if people don't feel like they have a seat at the table in enfranchisement, I think then they start exploring options outside the system, outside of the political process, the democratic process. So I think it's self-inflicted in many ways.
So you feel like after the mass deplatforming in 2021, whenever people on the right got pushed to platforms like Parler, Gab, Rumble, etc., the lack of discourse and like the political singularity of those platforms created more extremism?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Trump off of Twitter,
Liza.
Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And I predicted this in 21. I said, watch, you're going to see alternative social media rise because some venture capitalist is going to see there's a huge market of 70 million people that are going to follow Trump because Trump has no platforms. And that's exactly what happened. Rumble blew up. Elon bought Twitter. And what happened when you had total free speech on these platforms? Well, Twitter now resembles 4chan. And now, there's no gatekeepers. And I think it did push people in a radical direction. And honestly, people are even blowing past me. Now there's like mainstream normie types that are even blowing past me in terms of how radical they are. People start saying things like, there's no political solution. There's going to be a civil war. We need a revolution. And I think that's because the message from the left was you're crushed. You have no options. You can't win. There's no alternative. Trump is going to be indicted and charged and can't run. You can't be on Twitter. You can't have a job. And so people started to say, okay, well, we still exist.
This is not true. This wasn't a situation where they were so unhappy. There were so much of victims that this created this gateway of a section for people to kind of get famous on these other accounts. Let's be very clear. Rumble did blow up. It's not nearly as big as the other streaming services. Not nearly as big. And it's not a complete right-wing like shit show. The big thing that was happening is that these right-wingers were buying up the media companies. That's it. It wasn't a situation where people were dissatisfied and they found an outlet. No. Unfortunately, the truth is that the right has the power of the wealthy on their side. And they realized that there were a group of people that were so delusionally following Trump that they can profit off of them. So what happened? The richest man in the world felt like, oh yeah, let me align with MAGA so he can do his bullshit. He bought Twitter. So you guys got Twitter. You guys, then what happened is that you guys started pressuring media companies, buying up media companies, and started pushing your messaging on all these media companies with the power of money, not the power of people's will. So give me a break. The people don't want these spaces. Twitter is fucking disgusting nowadays. It is a for-profit organization that pushes radicalism. So cry me a fucking river regarding this whole thing about these people were victims. Yeah, right.
still here. We still have these concerns. What do we do now? And then people start to say, well, we need a revolution. And I'm one of the only people saying, no, we should still engage in the process and talk with each other. And it's not all one-sided. I think there's problems on the left and the right, but I certainly think it takes two to tango.
Okay, so there, we agree. I think that there are problems on the left and the right. And I don't
Twitter is
disagree
definitely a
with
joke.
some of the things that you just said. I guess I just came to a different conclusion that there are some things that people should be deplatformed for. Not that they can't say it when they want to say it, but I think that it's a right of anybody.
Okay, top 3 things. What do you think?
There's a difference between being able to say that you're proud of your white heritage and also being just flat out racist. I think that there's a difference between saying you're proud of your Christian heritage and the white culture from what you come from and Nazis, or that you adopt the Nazism as a legitimate ideology. I think that there's a difference between saying that you disagree with the United States policy as it relates to Israel and saying that the Holocaust didn't exist.
I was like, Mom, Dad, Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right. And the Holocaust didn't happen. And my parents were like, we cannot believe.
Those would be top 3 things in my mind. I know that you believe that some people took you out of context. And I do agree. Look, on both the right and the left, there are these gatekeepers, 100%. And look at me, the mainstream press just destroyed me for 7 years without any real kind of reflection about what they were doing. I do think that, some of those things are legitimate reasons to say, we don't want you on our, on our commercial platform. Would you agree with that? I mean, you just said, for instance, people calling for like an armed revolution, like people calling for actual
Steven,
violence.
you're saying nonsense, so I don't.
I'm against violence, and I do think those are one
nonsense.
of the legitimate things that should be taken from the platform. There's a lot of the stuff on social media I don't agree with, but again, what started to happen is there was this like editorial censorship where certain ideas were banned, and it was such a broad brush and also totally opaque and ad hoc. You'd be on YouTube.
This is some bullshit. Nobody's complaining about the fact that on True Social they're just pushing right-wing Donald Trump propaganda. Nobody's bitching. Nobody's complaining. You know why? Because their message is getting out there. That is what's happening. This victimization of people not being able to say what they want. Twitter has been banning more people for stupid things more now than it was before. Give me a fucking break, please. Like, you guys are not telling the truth. You guys can say whatever you want. What has been happening is you guys been degrading, disgusting human beings on the platform. I'm sorry. Inciting violence, threatening people. I'm sorry. That's not okay. It's like this idea that these victims exist is just fucking propaganda. Now, of course, this is going to resonate with people who think that they are victims of a system, but in reality, they want to be the ones that are above. They want their proper place in the hierarchy of American citizens. And if they're not at a certain location, if it's not there and the other people are here, then they feel like they're misplaced. Because how dare it be somewhat equal? How dare it be equal at all?
Like I was, for example, they banned me for life and didn't even give me a reason. Not a specific quote, not a specific infraction. And so you don't know what the rules are. You don't know what the process is. They just take you down. And especially now when everything is digital, it's not just the social platforms, it's the other ones like Uber, Airbnb, whatever. It feels like you're being denied almost something like a civil right. Because the social platforms are the modern public square. Increasingly with Uber, Airbnb, the banking apps, you can't live your life without the tech platforms. And it felt like if you just simply had the wrong opinions or you were the wrong kind of person, you were being deprived of like a basic civil right or being able to participate in society. So, and I think maybe that's an area of collaboration where we recognize maybe it is a civil right to use the digital platforms, but here are the rules. Here's what you can say. Here's what you can't say. Here's the process. Maybe there's a reconciliation mechanism, but I mean,
Fuentes, you were saying that the Holocaust either wasn't real or it didn't happen as badly, or you're undermining the Holocaust in general. Can there be a criticism of how these organizations, which obviously have very powerful people that may align with Judaism, are a little bit too frazzled anytime they feel like there is a movement towards the hatred of Jewish people? There couldn't be a legitimate criticism there, of course. And then the backlash, that's mostly because of like what Israel's been doing, is that people have been losing a lot of sympathy towards Jewish people, unfortunate as it is. But even if that may exist, there also needs to be a recognition on your part in this game. This idea is like, I don't know what I did, bro. You were undermining the Holocaust. You know exactly what you did. Come on. You're undermining the Holocaust.
No, I guess what I'm saying is that I don't see that as a result of left-wing or right-wing ideology. I view that kind of level of deplatforming. Look, I was debanked. I was debanked before I was ever even charged with anything. I lost every bank account. It took me, 9 months once they, the Trump administration, said that they were starting an investigation into me to be able to actually get a bank account again. And I don't want to tell you the bank because tomorrow they may debank me again. But my point is that those people are incredibly identifiable. I've been talking and going around and I say things like, I don't think we are nearly as divided as they're telling us we are. Because I do believe that there are an identifiable group of people that are responsible for an enormous amount of the discord and division because they make money off of it. I think that these social media companies that are controlled by 3, 4, 5, individuals have made it clear that they only care about one thing. They only care about how much money they can produce for themselves and, the people that hold stocks in their company, even to the degree where we know for certain that they're driving teenage girls to the highest levels of suicide by a factor, like exponential factors, directly related to the content that they're being pushed, and they won't do anything about it.
Right.
And so, to the same degree, I think they, a lot of what you call wokeness was maybe an illegitimate, but a financial decision based on a lot of these
Corporate psyop, maybe.
Corporate psyop.
Thank you.
I mean, by the way, exactly. I
just want to back up real quick. So you talked about certain people going too far. About 2.5 months ago, I visited a whites-only community in Hardy,
Corporate psyop. I don't really like the framing, but whatever. We stand with Nick against Netanyahu. Fuck no. Wackadoodle in the house.
Arkansas. And I don't know why, I guess coming from like a more like left-wing place, I'm from Seattle, I kind of assumed there was like a united front on the right for some reason. So I'm out there, I'm chilling with these dudes, they're like sword fighting, having barbecues. Overall it was a good time for them. I had a hard time connecting with them because I don't agree with them, but it's all good. I was having fun for a couple days. And then like right as I was there, I guess you had hit them up on X or something and said like, hey, I don't want to associate with you guys. What happened there?
Well, that was really more of a personal disagreement with the guy that founded it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an interesting project. And it's interesting that got so much pushback, this whites-only community, because you know what? If you go to a lot of these different neighborhoods in major cities, there are ethnic enclaves. And it's not like there's an explicit rule that you have to be a certain ethnicity, but we all know in Chicago and New York and LA, you got certain neighborhoods where it is 80, 90% one ethnicity.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of white people that say we kind of want something similar. I don't think there's any.
Well, the reason why that is a situation of circumstance, not a situation of what I call it, a situation of convenience. The all-white enclave is not something that is necessary. It's something that wants to be created based off personal wants. The ethnic enclaves that exist is a situation of like poverty and obviously the not a lot of resources in there, so they come together and then create these kind of different factions in the neighborhood to either push and galvanize resources or even protection and safety. So I'm not saying it's a good thing. I think there should be no ethnic enclaves. I think there should be no ethnic groups. I don't believe in a lot of these gangs that may exist in these impoverished areas. I'm not a fan of these at all. And I do think we need to put a lot of more money and resources there. But there's a difference between when like white suburban dudes do it versus like poor people who are trying to find a community. Very, very, very different circumstances.
Okay, let's back up. If you want to talk about the histories of New York and Chicago, I feel like that was also a conscious decision that was made. Like
I tell you where it's blacks only. It's in Cabrini Green, where Mayor Daley made everybody that was black live in the Cabrini Green. I mean, it's not. That wasn't by choice. It's not by choice that these ethnic enclaves are 80 or 90%, whatever.
That's another great point in terms of like the very clear like racial segregation that was historically applied to these locations, and they grew up in these areas. Especially a lot of people not having enough money to move out of these places too. That's a really good point from Hunter, surprisingly.
That ethnicity is because that's the only place in which they had an opportunity to live unbothered, or where they were told that they had to live because of the historical fact that they could not move into other neighborhoods. You could not move into parts of South Chicago without being stoned.
Right.
Literally, right?
Yeah,
and so so it's not as if those ethnic enclaves are there by choice. And so that
also ethnic enclaves do exist for like specific variations of different Europeans. Like, there is like places that are chocolate. Like South Philly's full of Italians.
There's Little Italy and there's Little Korea.
So I think the issue, what I always like, what confused me the most about the whites only community is like, there's just so many different kinds of white people in America. So like to establish a unified white culture with a place so diverse and full of like different regional flavors just kind of felt confusing to me because it can mean a different thing depending on what part of the country, what European enclave you originated from. Like we're Irish people from the Philly area. Can you compare that to like, surfers in San Diego or even like, Italian Americans in Staten Island? I don't know. Everything just feels so different. So when I got there, I was trying to identify what they meant by white culture. It wasn't really based on shared like cultural practices. but more the exclusion of people who weren't white. So they weren't like stoked on being European necessarily. They were more just like, oh, we're here because those people aren't here. So it just kind of felt more negative and constructive.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not really involved with that project in particular, but I think that, look, I mean, you talk about the anger that's out there and the frustration. And I think part of the frustration, let's be honest, is that white people do feel like we are being boxed out in major cities in the country. And it feels like, look, there's a little Haiti and there's these various ethnic enclaves where you get that local culture and they do their, cultural festivals and that sort of thing. And white people feel like they're being pushed out and they want a space where things are familiar.
Do you feel the same way about the Italian festival that happens in every city?
Well, here's a good example. So,
or St. Patrick's Day?
Well, there's no Irish neighborhood in Chicago. Little
Sure
Italy.
there is.
I mean, there's some remnant in Bridgeport.
Yeah. It's important to note that, like, I'm not trying to get into like a shouting match here, but like, as a family coming from a family who did leave Philadelphia in the 60s because of black migration from the South after the Civil Rights Act was passed, there was a sort of like mass flight of white people into the suburbs. And that kind of led to a homogenization of different cultures because they rushed so fast to build these like identical strip mall suburbs that it was very hard to maintain cultural bonds that made different European and white neighborhoods unique around like the 1950s and before. So I feel like the mass suburbanization is also a big factor that led to those like cultural bonds breaking.
Yeah, but why did that happen? I mean, a lot of the suburbanization is because of the race riots in the 1960s. People moved out because of the violence. My grandfather was in the National Guard in Chicago when, after MLK got assassinated, the whole West Side burned to the ground. Yeah. People didn't want to be around that anymore.
Why were the riots?
MLK Jr. was assassinated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so does that justify burning down the city?
No, I didn't say it justifies it, but it sure justifies an enormous amount of the anger, the same kind of anger that you feel about being left out.
Hunter, this is a fucking fantastic point. Who knew Hunter was based? Who knew Hunter was based? Because it's interesting how we're going to play victim for the locations that were burning down after MLK's assassination of the race riots. It's interesting, like, we're feeling bad for them, but we're not having the same energy, or at the very least following the timeline of events that happened before then that led to now. I find that odd, right? The minorities, I don't know. Me, Hunter is a good Joe. Yeah, he's not doing too bad. Brown shirt is Andrew Callaghan, I think that's his name.
Same kind of anger that you're expressing right now about the idea that you're culturally irrelevant, that you don't have a place in society. Imagine if you were a 26-year-old black man in 1968 and saw your hero be assassinated.
I saw Trump get shot in the ear, and
did he?
And I saw Charlie Kirk get shot, and I didn't see any cities get burned down.
And I think this should tell you exactly what Nick Fuentes thinks about black people. I think that should sum it up completely. Hunter Biden is doing a pretty good job in articulating the struggles for the people back in the day. In a time where black people were seen less than human, they were being desegregated, they were being treated as disgusting. The system was against them, and they were dying, and they were being what the KKK was doing to. In order for Nick Fuentes to equivocate and undermine what black people were going through during that period in time, he brings up the attempted assassination for Trump and Kirk's assassination. Are we serious? Are we serious? Are we serious? That tells you all you need to know. He doesn't give a fuck about what happened to them. It's like, it is what it is. Who cares? That's the energy I got. So this whole I'm not really that guy bullshit.
I think it's a very, very, very different thing. I think
How is that different? Charlie Kirk
thing.
got shot in the neck.
Yeah.
And liberals celebrated all over social media by Tyler Robinson.
Yeah. Who is what?
Who is some liberal guy.
He is?
Mm-hmm.
What,
he's got a transgender boyfriend.
Does that makes him liberal? Because he's transgender? Because he's gay?
So. Well, because he's got a transgender boyfriend, yeah, I think so.
It makes him liberal.
I think he was liberal, yeah.
Okay. Well, he didn't come from a liberal family. He didn't come from a liberal enclave. He didn't come from a liberal background. He's not a minority. He was a Mormon, correct? Mm-hmm. And grew up in a Mormon household. And he went to a largely Mormon college. Mm-hmm. And he ended up committing an act of violence, according to the FBI and the authorities in Utah that charged him. How does that in any way compare to what we're talking about? I'm not justifying the violence that occurred after the death of Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. But you're saying that person, this Tyler, whoever his name is was as disenfranchised as the African American community in 1968 in inner cities?
Well, the question is who we want to live around. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry.
So he didn't answer the question. Oh my God, Hunter Biden's kind of cooking. Yo, did anybody think that Hunter Biden was going to cook as much? I didn't think he was actually going to know facts. Yo, round of applause for Hunter Biden. I am surprised. Bro, Not only did he know the context of Tyler Robinson, which there's no evidence that he's liberal just because of the trans stuff. And if we're talking about, if we're being completely honest, and we're talking about Republicans, you motherfuckers love gay orgies all the fucking time. So stop pretending just because you do gay shit that you are liberal. Get the fuck out of here. But he brought up the receipts of his background, who he was. Okay, Hunter. And yes, it's crazy to compare what Tyler Robinson did to what happened with MLK. It's crazy. Hunter Biden kind of base. Despite what Micah says, he's highly educated and intelligent. Hunter, I didn't give him enough credit. He's cooking. Dude, he can crush Trump. Like, Hunter could destroy Trump in a debate. He could. He's much more qualified for the position he held than any Trump for anything. Oh, for sure. Clears Trump Jr.'s. Clears Eric Trump.
I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry.
And in the 1960s, the West Side burns down. We don't want to live around that. We don't want to live around a
That's
city
not
that's
when it
burning down.
happened. That's not when the white flight happened.
It is. It was a big response to it. Absolutely.
100% not. You
Absolutely.
make these historical connections that don't exist. Part of it was potentially, but before that, what Mayor Daley did is made Chicago the most segregated city in the entire United States, other than Boston. When you would come from the South to Chicago, African Americans from the South, blacks in the South coming to Chicago would say that Chicago was twice the level of segregation and racism that occurred in the South. And so it wasn't as if you're coming into a situation in which you're feeling in any way enfranchised by the community and the situation that you're in. And as many people left simply because of the idea that someone was black moving into their neighborhood as the violence that occurred after the assassination of Martin Luther King. So the numbers actually, pre-1968, when King was shot, you had more people leave the city because of the desegregation, because of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, than you did after the riots.
I think that's just not true. I think that the race riots were a huge driver of white flight to the suburbs. I think it's just dishonest to say that's not the case.
Okay, so what's your point about all this?
Well, we're talking about where people want to live.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God. Hunter Biden is cooking the fuck out of Nick Fuentes. He is cooking the fuck out of Nick Fuentes. And Nick was like, well, that's just not true. Yo. He knows his history. I didn't give him enough credit. I'm actually flabbergasted how well Hunter Biden is doing right now. He is filet mignon. He's sizzling. He's cooking Nick Fuentes. Can you imagine if we ran him for president? How MAGA said if we ran him for president, that'd be kind of crazy. Hey man. He might just be. Hey, you can be a degenerate who loves to drink, who loves to smoke, who loves to fuck, and you can be a political pundit. I think you could do both. I think you could do both as long as you're not a weirdo like Graham Plattner. I'm just saying. And he grifted nothing compared to Don Jr. for sure. Great content. Keep it up. Appreciate it, Mike. Bad Bunny 2028. I don't know about Bad Bunny.
So like what in 2026?
Well, okay, how about in 2020 when Minneapolis burned to the ground? Or how about in the summer of 2020 in Chicago?
Minneapolis didn't burn to the ground.
It didn't?
No. I mean, there were
BLM
parts
didn't
of it,
destroy
but-
dozens of
If you
structures?
guys need a physical witness to what happened in Minneapolis, there were many structures that burned to the ground. Not the city, but there was, I would say, between 40 to 50 buildings off of Lake Street in the south side that did burn to the ground. But most of the city was intact, but it was quite an intense situation.
People don't want to live around that. People don't want to live around that. You know, in Chicago, it rolled on into the summer, and it wasn't, you know, let's say the anger of the oppressed and the disenfranchised.
So
They
who's
were
at fault?
looting. They were looting and
Who's
carjacking.
they?
The criminals.
Are you saying that the problem with a 26-year-old white kid living in suburbia outside of Chicago and his feeling of being disenfranchised is because there was looting and rioting in Minneapolis by black people? And it's black people that are doing it.
Yeah. I mean, the problem with
Are you
Austin
really?
Metcalf was that he got stabbed in the neck at a track meet. And the problem with our city in Chicago is that the
And the
Magnificent
problem-
Mile is gone.
and
Water Tower Place
the
is gone
problem
because of
with
all the crime.
Nick, and the problem of an entire generation of African Americans is that they've been getting killed by cops for decades.
That's
What are
just
you
not
talking
true.
about, Nick?
Because they commit crime. And listen, it's not
Nick,
what?
that's not true. It's
Oh,
not true. Are
it
you saying
is.
that police brutality as it relates in racism in the police force, in the way in which police treat African Americans? Nick, you could grow up here like I did between Wilmington and Philadelphia. And if you were a black dentist and you lived in Wilmington and you commuted to Philadelphia, the chances of you being pulled over by a state trooper, either Delaware or in Pennsylvania, are about 50 times that would be if it was a white guy. 50 times. And
We're
so what
talking
you're
about-
trying to tell me is that the problem in America right now is that a 26-year-old white kid who lives in suburban Chicago doesn't feel like he has access because he's been canceled or he's been woke. And the problem is black people.
I didn't say the problem's black people.
Well, you just did, Nick. You just
I said
said
the problem is crime. And we know who's doing the crime in Chicago. The carjacking.
See, the problem is black people. You know what's crazy? I didn't realize Hunter Biden was for us. Hey, Hunter, keep it up. I sold you short. Keep it up. But you know what's crazy about this conversation? Everything Hunter is saying is correct. Everything Hunter is saying is correct. And of course, in these like city areas filled with minorities, of course, when you you have a huge population and you have like so many minorities and it doesn't have a lot of resources, it's poor areas, you're gonna have crime, of course. And unfortunately, because of historical oppression and systematic racism, and of course the stereotypes that were applied to Black people, seen as lesser than, and of course the crime policies and the treatment from cops and the treatment from the criminal justice system, we all understand how Black people were prevented from rising throughout American history to create wealth and create opportunity for themselves. And Hunter Biden is articulating that perfectly. But the crazy part about this conversation, the annoying part about this conversation, is we pretend that there are two sections of determined wealth areas in the country of America. That's not true, right? There's suburbs, there's urban, and what is the third one, people? Rural. So the idea that these rural places that have a lot of white people, a lot of crime, a lot of poverty, a lot of bad resources never gets brought up to the conversation. We're acting like, oh, the white people should be identified from the fact that they live in suburbs. Well, crazy, most of the white people don't live in suburbs. They live in rural areas. And these places fucking suck. These are awful places. These are uneducated places. These are crime-riddled places. These are places nobody wants to live in. There's no opportunity. But we're going to pretend that the only way to identify criminals is from urban areas, because these urban areas are condensed locations close to businesses where sections are like cut off for a reason, filled with people with poverty, to be workers in these places oftentimes. But what about those other areas in America that makes up the majority of America, which is rural areas? It's crazy that the conversation always acts like this way, acting like white people are like these privileged fucking fairies that live in suburb areas. A lot of you motherfuckers commit more crime because there's more of you. You know where you commit crime? You commit in cities. You commit in suburb areas. You also commit in rural areas. You guys are not special. It's complete bullshit how we have this conversation. Complete bullshit. We should have porn stars for our president. Johnny Sins for president. Yeah. I think we all, if Johnny Sins becomes president, we all would kind of feel worse about ourselves because we couldn't be Johnny Sins. You know, everybody wants to be Obama, but we all know like who Johnny Sins is, you know what I'm saying? And we can't be Johnny Sins, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying? Afro Man 2028. Facts based. You learned that from Joe Biden. Like Joe Biden is obviously very smart. He just became old and incompetent at the end of his term, unfortunately. I'm Hunter Biden, very base. Sounds really rational. I'm kind of impressed. Same nurse. Rich subsidized farmers and ranchers, meth counties. We never talk about the rural areas. I just find that hilarious.
Shootings, teen takeovers. We know why there's no business on the Mag Mile anymore, and it's because they steal cars, they drive them through windows. And listen, Black people are some of the biggest victims of the Black crime. But we're not allowed to talk about it because of the racial
What do you mean
dimension.
you're not allowed to talk about it? We're talking about it right here. You have a platform in which millions of people listen to you, Dick.
Well, after...
Oh my God, Hunter Biden is cooking. It's always interesting what people say, oh, we're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to talk about the issues of the Black community. And then you guys are always fucking talking about the issues with the Black community. This whole, you know what? The biggest lie that's been told on social media is the lie that these conversations aren't happening, even though they happen all the fucking time in right-wing spaces. All you motherfuckers do is talk about Black crime. That's all you fucking talk about. But you're like, we never get to talk about it. Where do you not get to talk about it? Where? Where in the world do you not? It's talked about every fucking time. Black people are criminals. Black people kill more Black people. Black people do more crime by percentage. All you fucking talk about is Black people doing crime.
after Elon had to buy Twitter and open it up. It wasn't like that before. I was banned from everything for many years. So no, you weren't allowed it. You're right. We can talk about it now, but that's only because the good guys won.
Hey, what's up, guys? There's something I forgot to tell you about. We also just launched our own streaming platform called C5.now. We have 5 films on there right now.
Do they all love to talk about black and black crime? 100%. All those are white collateral damage or racist classist policy facts. Fox 2 24/7 talk about black crime 24/7. Trump supporter, but I respect that One Piece flag. I appreciate that. One Piece is the GOAT. Well, Attack on Titan's the GOAT. That's Attack on Titan right there. Attack on Titan is the GOAT. One Piece is the second GOAT. Attack on Titan's my GOAT at the very least.
On there to get the train moving. It is called Totally Community anymore. Not get pay creators.
And on Twitter to being on YouTube to creating an entire show. I know you're not, but now you have Kick and now you have all of these other things. You have an enormous.
All right, we're gonna end it there. Hunter Biden, very based. Very based. I'm not watching this full 2-hour thing. Hunter Biden cooked. Let's write a comment. Hunter Biden cooked Fuentes grifting ass. Love to see it. All right. I have another thing that I want to look at. So recently, this that's not all good. Stephen A. Smith talking to Tucker Carlson. I know. Oh, brother.
Supporter of President Donald Trump, but no longer.
President Donald. Oh, I hate Stephen A. Smith. One Piece is the greatest story I've ever seen, but Trump tells the truth, though. He reminds me of Whitebeard. This chatter said with full chest, One Piece being the greatest story of all time, good take. W take. He said with full chest. One Piece fans, he said with full chest. Donald Trump reminds him of Whitebeard. I don't need to say anything. I don't need to say anything. One Piece fans, you can tell me what you think about that. That was a crazy thing to say, my boy. This is a crazy thing to say. Oh my goodness. I can't believe you said that with full chest. I can't believe it. I am flabbergasted in real time that you told me, you said that to me with full chest. I'll be honest. They say it takes one with cold turkey off boxing to break the delusion syndrome. I do recommend that for you, DJ. Maybe. Because everybody's talking about black on black. It's a sign of love. They just black community to get their shit. Yo, he's rage baiting me. He's rage baiting me. He's rage baiting me. He's rage baiting me. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, let's do a quick intro and a thumbnail. All right, quick thumbnail. Quick thumbnail. Definitely bless him, man. Stephen A. Smith, our least favorite sports commentator who thinks he can talk politics, has spoken with another political commentator. As you guys can see from the title, yes, Tucker Carlson. Now, you can imagine, because Stephen A. Smith is absolutely horrible in engaging with politics, knows nothing about what he's talking about, he's probably going to allow Tucker Carlson to get off anything he fucking wants. And maybe, just maybe, he's going to ask a couple follow-up questions on, don't you think, well, what about this? Well, no real pushback. So I will come on this platform and help you guys out. And anytime Tucker Carlson says absolute nonsense with his grifting ass, I will address it. Let's talk about it, shall we? Don't know if I'll watch the full thing, but it is on 1.5 speed because sometimes these guys be yapping. Tucker wants to be president 100%. 100%. He's definitely going to be like one of the big mega candidates. I'm not rage baiting. I'm dead serious. If the black community thrives, we basically get closer to a perfect country. At least I can agree with that. Fusion, I can agree with that. Facts of leaving.
Longer. Since leaving Fox News in 2023, he's launched an opponymous talk. We'll go with that for now. We'll go with that for now. Let's get right to it, Tucker Carlson. I mean, right. You've spoken out. Once upon a time you supported the president. That is no longer the case. Not to be redundant, but remind our audience why you don't seem to be as supportive of President Trump as you once were.
Well, I supported him. Not only supported him, I campaigned with him and for him, and spoke at the Republican National Convention, and knew him for 20 years. And I defended him at Fox, for my entire time there. And I got along with him really well until about 20 minutes ago, actually, until February 28th, when he launched a regime change war on behalf of Israel, with Israel, on Iran, a war that every person who was paying attention knew could not be won, and that would only damage the United States. And I told him that repeatedly before he did it. And it wasn't, from my perspective, just a mistake. It was like the end of an entire moment in world history where the United States, has enough power to influence events. That's all done, I think, because of this. And I think it's going to dramatically affect the standard of living in the United States and in Western Europe, which I care about. I think it's the most disastrous decision any American president has made in my lifetime, and nothing comes close. So, it's not that I hate Trump as a person. I feel sorry for Trump. He wasn't able to make an independent decision. He's controlled by another country, but I disapprove of it, and I'm outraged on behalf of my country, which is the United States.
Well, Tucker, why does it have to be that he's controlled by another country? Why can't
it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way. No president should ever be controlled by another country.
Just let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be that, as opposed to he genuinely feels this way, and this is the decision that he made, and it's just something that you don't agree with, as opposed to him being controlled by another country?
Well, I would like that to be true. It's not true. And there are a lot of people demanding that I claim that's true, but I was there, and that's not true. It's a fact that he followed Israel into this war. He said it himself, and so did Secretary of State. And there's this frantic effort to by.
What did he say?
Well, I would like that to be true. It's not.
Why does it have to be that, as opposed to he genuinely feels this way, and this is the decision that he made, and it's just something that you don't? Why can't
it doesn't have to be that make an independent decision. He's controlled by another country, but I disapprove of it, and I'm outraged on behalf of my country, which is the United States.
Well, Tucker, why does it have to be that he's controlled by another country? Why can't
it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be. No president should ever be controlled by another country.
Just let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be that, as opposed to he genuinely feels this way, and this is the decision that he made, and it's just something that you don't agree with, as opposed to him being controlled by another country?
Well, I would like that to be true. It's not true. And there are a lot of people demanding that I claim that's true, but I was there, and that's not.
Oh, yeah, K-Mate. Like, Tucker is 100% grifting away from Trump.
Not true. It's a fact that he followed Israel into this war. He said it himself, and so did Secretary of State. And there's this frantic effort by agents of Israel to rewrite history and make us forget what just happened in February, which was the United States following the lead of Israel into a war that gravely harms the United States. That's what happened. Trump was not for this. I talked to him a lot about it. He made no case to the American public demonstrating that he was for it. He said, well, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear program. Okay, that's fair, I guess. I don't really care, but he cared. And then in last June, he said he eliminated the nuclear program. And then 6 months later, he's like, we have to go to war. We have to kill the leader of Shia Islam because of the nuclear. It didn't make any sense. He followed Israel into this. He did this under pressure from Israel. They chose when it started. They chose the parameters of the war. And critically, they were our partner in the war. Like, literally went into this war with Israel. I'm not saying that because I'm a bigot or an anti-Semite or a Nazi. I'm saying this because that's what the U.S. government told us. So there's been this effort to lie about what just happened. And I've seen this a lot. I saw it with 9/11. I saw it with the Iraq war. And I'm just not going to play along again because I was there. I know what happened.
So my question would be this. He's the leader of the free world. Why does he need to follow anybody? Why is another country leading us as opposed to it being the other way around? How do you explain that?
Dude, you tell me.
Glad Tucker is outspoken in Israel, but don't trust his motives. Fair.
I don't have the answer. I said this to him directly. I said this June, which Israel started. And we didn't benefit from it, obviously. We went to war again. That was the beginning of the regime change war that they planned and wanted for their own reasons. It had nothing to do with our strategic goals or our interests at all. It only hurt the United States. It killed a bunch of Americans. It's going to drive us out of the region, destroyed all of our bases on the Gulf. It's a disaster. So I told him at the time, you are being led around by the nose by Netanyahu, and everyone can see it. And, he didn't like to hear that, but it was a fact. It remains.
What did he say to you when you told him?
Why is that?
When you said that to him, when you said those words that you just said, what did he say to you? What did you say to him? What did he say to you in response?
I think Trump, so you can picture the scene.
Yes.
Trump hates confrontation, direct confrontation, hates it, can't deal with it at all. He likes everyone to get along. He likes to tell jokes. And I like this about him. I'm not criticizing it at all. He said, oh, no, it's going to be totally fine. That's not true. And it's fine. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And then he had someone else call and say that he was offended by it, which I understand. I shouldn't have said that. I snapped. I was so frustrated. This is embarrassing. I'm an American. Whatever you think of this country, which has treated me very well, and my family's been here forever. I like America. I live here. My kids live here. This hurts America. And I don't like to see the United States humiliated because it's my country. And that's humiliating. Why are you taking orders from a country of 9 million people with no resources? And I'm not even attacking Israel. I'm attacking our leaders who today in the US Congress, right now as we're talking, are voting to merge the US military with the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, the group committing genocide in the Middle East.
And why would we be doing that? Why would we be merging with the IDF? What would be
it's totally bonkers. I'll tell you why we're not doing it is because the overwhelming majority of Americans want it. They don't. Who would want that? What's the upside for us? We're doing it because Israel wants it, and Israel controls our politics through campaign donations, at least, and maybe there are other
people can change. I don't believe Tucker's changing. I think this is a grift. I think this is grifting to survive the aftermath of Donald Trump. I don't think he's changed.
Ways that it controls our politics, but there's no debate about it now. This is not an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. My whole life I've watched this. My whole life I've said nothing about it. And in a lot of ways, I was intimidated by the claim that anyone who notices is an anti-Semite. Well, I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm never going to be an anti-Semite. I abhor anti-Semitism and all forms of racism, no matter what they say. I'm not for it. So that's not my motive. My motive is it's true. And trying to bully me into saying it's not true is not going to work. Why is it happening? I don't know. And I've said this a million times in public, and I really think we need a national conversation about why the president of the United States not just hurt his country, but hurt himself and his legacy and his party and everything that he worked all these years to build, trying to stay out of prison and almost murdered by a gunman and butler, all the drama that he went through, all thrown away because now he's the president that led us into a war that we cannot win. We cannot win the war. And by the way, if we can win the war, tell me how. Is there a military means by which we open the Strait of Hormuz? No. And if there was, we would have
So far, everything Tucker, little hyperbole, but overall, the premise, everything he's saying for the most part is correct. I don't want to nitpick every little detail just because the American forces joining the IDF is not true. It's a little bit more detailed there, but everything for the most part he's saying is correct. So that's why I'm not really pushing back.
What about the notion that you're keeping Iran from capturing a nuclear weapon? That would be their argument. That's what they would say. That's what he's been saying. That's what his supporters have been saying. Iran, remember, he told us, you're absolutely right. Initially, they bombed him last June, and they talked about we've obliterated them, we're good. And then a few months later, he bombs them again because supposedly they're a month away from having a nuclear weapon, and we have to stop that at all costs. Even now, they'll say, you don't want Iran to capture a nuclear weapon. There's plenty of conservatives.
Oh, no, I hate Tucker Carlson. I think he's a piece of shit. But he's not the biggest, he's not my enemy right now, so.
Walking around throughout the country that don't know things nearly as intimately as you do, and that's the excuse that they use. Well, we've got to keep Iran from capturing a nuclear weapon. That's why Trump is doing what he's doing. What do you say?
I mean, it's sad and insulting, and no one who thinks about it for more than 3 minutes believes it. If there was ever a time when Iran has to get a nuclear weapon, it's now, because we just proved what happens when you don't have a nuclear weapon.
With you?
When you have a nuclear weapon and you're North Korea, Stalinist slave state, we leave you alone. No one's arguing for an invasion of North Korea on the basis of human rights. They mean there are people that throw them in concentration camps. They don't have free speech.
I mean, he's just saying truthful stuff. I mean, it's not a agree or disagree. We're in a war we can't win. Israel did kind of force the America to be involved with the war in Iran. Those are like the main points he's saying. There was like a plan with like the US and the IDF. There was somewhat of a plan there. That's just true. So yeah, I mean, everything you say for the most part is true. Like in the past few minutes, have you been agreeing with Tucker? I haven't. I don't follow Tucker that closely to really say one way or the other. The only thing I know for a fact is his positions regarding immigration are dog shit. His positions regarding Russia are dog shit. Those are the things I can say for certainty.
Of democracy, we need to invade. No one's saying that because North Korea, unlike Iran, has nuclear weapons. So you can't be messed with when you have nuclear weapons. So what's the incentive for every nation on the freaking planet is to get nuclear weapons as soon as possible, or else get regime changed by the United States? Nuclear weapons means other countries have to respect you. Therefore, we have just said in motion an irresistible incentive to get nuclear weapons, and Iran will have them at some point. They'll buy them from Pakistan, which is what North Korea did, or they'll create them on their own. They have the technological know-how, obviously. But once you kill the 87-year-old religious leader of their religion, once you murder the Shiite Pope, which we did, you ensure that there is a generational conflict that our grandkids are going to have to deal with. We haven't had a lot of terror attacks in the United States, despite what the liars tell you. We haven't. We're separated by an ocean. We've done a pretty good job of not having those. We're going to have them now. And they are a result of what the Trump administration just did at the behest of Israel. So this doesn't make us safer. Anyone who thinks it does, I feel sorry for. You've lost your capacity for thinking independently. But any normal person of any party is like, wait, how does this make us safer? No, this imperils us. It impoverishes us. It diminishes our power, makes us more vulnerable, obviously. And I said this to Trump, and he didn't disagree, but he did it anyway.
So, again, this technically is correct with here Tucker Carlson in terms of everything making us more dangerous. That's for sure true. His point about nuclear weapons is a bit off. We had a nuclear deal with Iran before under the Obama administration that ensured that they were not building nukes. But now they're more incentivized because Trump got rid of the JCPOA. So not every country needs a nuke. Not every country should have a nuke. However, are we in a more dangerous situation? Yes. Yes, for sure. Bibi tried every president. He got the big mouth bat. Yeah, facts. He got exactly who he wanted. The orange fat Nepo baby.
He didn't disagree, but he did it anyway. You know,
Yes,
I'm going to
that's
get back to that. I'm going to get back to the Islamic contingent about it, but I want to go back to the Jewish contingent in this regard. I want to, because you made it a point to point out you don't engage in anti-Semitism, you don't support it, you don't believe it, you don't believe you're a part of it, etc., etc. When people talk about some of the things that you said, I wanted some controversial comments that you made in regards to the Gaza war.
Right.
You called Israel's actions genocide, ethnic cleansing, murder of thousands of children, and a land grab. You described it as losing morality, treating average, quote, like animals or subhumans, end quote, and incompatible with Western civilization values. You visited Gaza refugees and highlighted
Iran hasn't started a war for a century. They were funding organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas. Like I don't think they should be let off the hook by any means. And they were in a lot of conflict within their country itself, which allowed the obvious supremacy of the what are they called? It's the religious sect of Iran. So I mean, I wouldn't go that far.
casualties. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, by the way. But I would ask you.
But in terms of a war, like like I understand what you mean. I agree because they never got into like a full scale war with anybody until we bombed them with Israel. So I agree. I'm just ensuring that I'm establishing that they've still been doing things that have been threatening to us and our allies. That's the only point I'm making. Resistance to Israel is legitimate. No, I wouldn't agree to that. I think the funding of terrorist organizations is not a good thing. I think Hamas is not good. I think Hezbollah is not good. And I think, they're bad. What if Iraq initiated the conflict in the 80s? Well, initiated and being involved in, hasn't started a war. That was your point. I thought you were talking about general involvement. Okay, sure. Sure. I'm not interested to kind of go into the Middle East history right now. Regardless, my point stands in terms of Iran was doing things that were antagonistic to us and our enemies, and that's just true. But Iraq was supported by the USA. Again, we're not going to do the middle. I support the resistance. I don't think Iran is the resistance. I think certain organizations could be the resistance. I believe like the Kurds in Iran could be the resistance. I think Palestinians could be, but I do think Hamas is not. And I think that's just true. What if Tucker was just acting like he hates Trump in order to get on the left wing, maybe to push opposite? Maybe.
No, that sounds like Nazi behavior, like worrying about children who are injured. I mean,
exactly.
First of all, everything you just listed,
what are y'all talking about? I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
It's a slander. Look, if you're committing genocide, which Israel currently is in Gaza, and genocide is, we have an international definition of it, which everyone signed on to up until about 20 minutes until Israel started committing it. And it is the systematic effort by government to eliminate a people. And I don't have to guess about this because Israeli cabinet ministers and the prime minister of Israel repeatedly have said that's their goal. They describe the Palestinians as Amalek. I'll refer you to the Old Testament or Hebrew scriptures, whatever you want to call it, our Bible and theirs, in which Amalek is the Amalekites. And that's the group that God tells the ancient Hebrews to kill, all of them, including their children, their babies, and their livestock. And the prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has used this phrase multiple times, not just randomly once, again and again and again in speeches. And so have his cabinet ministers, the finance minister, the defense minister. They've all said the point is we have to kill all these people and drive them out. Well, that is the definition of genocide. Don't take my word for it. Israeli human rights groups are calling it genocide. The rest of the world is calling it genocide. The prime minister has been indicted in international court for genocide. There's no debate about whether it's genocide. The debate is, why are we going along with this and allowing people who are committing genocide to give us moral lectures? Like, I'm not the criminal for noticing what you're doing. And I'm not going to take a moral lecture from Adolf Eichmann. Why would I? This is crazy. And by the way, future generations will realize that it's crazy. So crazy, it's going to be hard to believe it happened.
So how would you answer the question of somebody?
I think it's a tool too. I already talked about the term genocide overall, but I'm not going to give Israel any favors. They're unhinged right now. Netanyahu needs to go. The far right Israeli part of the government needs to go. These people need to fucking go. Absolutely. So I'm not interested in defending Israel. Now, if we're talking about the history of Israel and how we got here, I just will be factually like coherent there. But if you want to say we shouldn't be funding them now, we shouldn't be sending tax dollars to them now, perfectly okay with that. Perfectly fine with it. 100% we should not be sending shit.
We would ask Tucker Carlson, is your issue with the Jewish community? Is it with Israel? Is it specifically with Benjamin Netanyahu? I mean, who's the issue with? Because that's somebody that you described
it's not a mystery. I've said it out loud. By the way, I hate even to go there because it's so low. It's playing their game, but it's also a fact that I have a lot of Jewish friends and Jewish guests on the show making exactly the same points. The idea that the government of Benjamin Netanyahu speaks for all Jews on planet Earth is a lie. It's a lie that's going to do grave damage to Jews. I don't know why people go along with this. If some lunatic stood up, some lunatic white person said, I speak for all whites, I would say, you don't speak for me. If Louis Farrakhan stands up and says, I speak for all black people, I hope you're like, no, not for me. Like, this idea that some politician in a foreign country gets to speak for global Jewry is insane. I'm not playing along with it. But here's the point. They are committing.
These are all just points I agree with. Like, at this point, the criticism of Israel is very obvious right now. I'm trying to find something a little bit more. Who's influenced Trump's decision on Iran? Is this whole entire show going to be about Israel? Tucker on impeachment. Ooh, okay. Let's hear what Tucker has to say about impeachment.
I was shilling for the Trump administration, for the Bush administration. They're like, no, it's a good idea to invade Iraq. I was completely wrong. And I've been humiliated ever since. But I did notice that the other side had demonstrations. Where are those demonstrations now? They're none because both parties are in favor of this. That's why.
Do you believe that this has been
Both parties are not in favor of the conflict in Iran. That's just not true. If that's what he was saying, that's just 100% not true. But of course, there's not going to be no pushback for Stephen A. Smith.
Impeachable offense?
I mean, the majority of the Democrats tried to push the War Powers Resolution, and fucking, of course, it didn't get passed because Republicans didn't want to do it. Did Germany know something we didn't? Israel needs to be put down. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not playing that stupid game. I'm sorry, KMA. I think that's obviously disgusting. You're doing the thing. You're doing the thing. You're doing the thing about, is it okay we killed that many Jewish people? Like, no, it's not. No, you're doing the thing.
By the president of the United States? And if so, what do you believe should happen to him in regards to these actions that he has taken?
Sarcasm. If it's a joke, fair enough. I'm okay with jokes. I obviously can't tell the tone, but if it's a joke, jokes are jokes. But the context of the conversation doesn't make it look like a joke, so you can understand why I'm concerned. Remember how the anti-pirate people laugh at Ace's death because they didn't know Ace? Reminds me a lot. Stop comparing One Piece to fucking manga. Stop it. Don't do that. Stop.
I think this is the one thing that Trump has done that he will never be impeached for because Democrats support it. Both parties supported regime change in Iran because both parties had the same paymasters and the same donors who were demanding loyalty to a foreign country. The same AIPAC donations that I think like 90% of the entire Congress takes money from a foreign lobby, unregistered foreign lobby. That's bonkers. If this were Liechtenstein or Congo bribing 90% of our lawmakers to toe the Liechtenstein or Congo line, I'd be totally opposed to it. It doesn't make me anti-Congolese or anti-Liechtensteinian. I'm not a racist for thinking that. I'm an American who wants my lawmakers to vote on behalf of my country. Like, it's that simple. It's literally that simple, and everybody sees it.
There's good. So Tucker is doing the thing. And honestly, this just helps DSA people. It's actually crazy. This opens the door wide open. That's why if you're a Democratic candidate, bro, just don't take AIPAC money. Don't take AIPAC money. If AIPAC didn't make a clear stance to be antagonistic to Netanyahu, don't accept their money. Just don't. Just don't. Now, there's a difference for a organization privately funding things to help your campaign versus you accepting money. I really don't know exactly if you can stop that, right? Like, imagine, because there's been the same type of allegations regarding Syed, where right wing organizations have been funding financing to push Syed's campaign because they believe they have a better chance to beat Syed than versus Haley Stevens. And I do think there's a possibility that separation does exist. But if AIPAC is funding you, or if there's the perceived notion that AIPAC is funding you, just make it very clear, nope, I'm not accepting their money. What they do privately, I can't do anything about, but I don't want their money. Just keep on saying it. It's a PR thing. Overall, the idea that Israel has control of both parties is fucking ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. It's obviously not true. That's why the entire Democrats have been doing so many policy to stop funding Israel. They've been doing policy to stop the war with Iran. The Republicans all have been keeping funding Israel and keeping the war with Iran. So it's not a both sides thing. It's absolutely ridiculous to make the claim at the both sides things. But of course, Stephen A. Smith is going to not push back at all, unfortunately. Ali, what's good? What is good? These people would say Trump is bad president, and fine, maybe he is, but hey, also will say Biden is a good president. Biden's objectively a good president. He just was like old. That's how you know you're full of shit, because you don't know anything about the policies that they've both been doing. Donald Trump obviously is a corrupt piece of garbage that's been doing things that have been destroying the country, whereas Biden was the president in the period of COVID, recovering the country from a pandemic and being successful at it. You just don't know what you're talking about. And it's okay for you to not know what you're talking about, but you just are an idiot and you have no idea what you're talking about. It's just the truth. Yes, you're a gross person. And that's where I don't like the lizard rule. It planned out on purpose by Trump to play out like this. Well, most of the right, especially the right, for the most part, still likes Israel. That's not true. A lot of the left hate Israel. A lot of the politicians on the left have been antagonistic to Israel, but the entirety of the right wing of the government have been pro-Israel for the most part. The entirety is a hyperbole, but like 80%, 85%. I voted for Biden, but was disappointed. I don't know why you were disappointed. I was disappointed that his brain got fried. I was disappointed that he couldn't run a second term because his brain was fried. But his presidency was actually pretty good. Trump is a piece of shit, indeed. Wages? Well, Olivia, they try to push the minimum wage stuff, but it got stopped in the Senate. And most of wages are determined at the state level, not the federal level. So I'll take fried brain Biden over pedo Trump. Facts. 100%. You're cooking. 100%. No doubt about it in my mind that I'll be doing that too.
The American media, which lies because it's controlled, and American lawmakers, politicians, who are paid to lie. But like now the consequences of it are getting so crazy. We're running out of oil. Trump said that last month. We're weeks away from draining the SPR. We have no cushion on oil. And so at some point, they're manipulating markets now. Obviously, the markets are totally manipulated.
He allowed cinema and Manchin to overpower him. You can't allow a senator to overpower you. It's a democracy. They voted against it. Biden can't do anything about it. They voted against it. Sometimes Democrats vote against things. There's why Susan Collins voted with the Democrats regarding the War Powers Resolution to stop the Iran war. It's like, you can't stop that. We don't have a dictator. It's just not how it works. They didn't push back on parliamentarian. Elaborate what you mean by that, and after this, I'll look into that in particular. You can pressure Congress members to an extent. To an extent. Like, you can pressure in a way, but ultimately they're upholdent to their constituents. If their constituents don't want that, then the pressure is typically just like an endorsement. But if the people you're in charge of don't want that, then the endorsement means nothing. So this pressure is kind of imaginary. The Democratic Party is not like the Republican Party, where Donald Trump has like control of all the Republican voters for the most part. And even in some cases where he has all control of the cult like MAGA, they don't vote with his candidates. Like, for example, there's a recent race where a candidate that was not endorsed by Trump won over the candidate that was endorsed by Trump in the primary. I don't remember which state it is. I could look it up and find it pretty easily, but I know for a fact this happened. He did win some concessions on student loan. There we go. There we go. Those Congress people ignored and betrayed their constituents. Hard to say. They lived in like purple areas, so it's hard to say. I don't know exactly what the people. You know what I really wish we had? I really wish we included people not in the voting process, but including them in their like opinions. It's crazy to me, and I think you guys would agree to this. It's crazy to me that with the technology we have, that we can't do more either referendums or polling, direct polling on bills that are being implemented into Congress. Like, imagine a situation where your state senator or your state congressman are able to send information out to all the people of your state or your district and go like, what do you think about this bill? And you get the details of all the bill. And then you just give your thoughts. I agree with the bill. I don't agree with the bill. I'm neutral with the bill. Imagine if we had a system like that, that just was a little bit more receptive on like what people think. And then that also, not only are people being more receptive on like what is going on in government, but they get in more information, more direct information, more educated information on like the things that are happening, the bills that are being passed. They're having it. They're getting the information. Like, it makes no sense to me why we can't provide more clear, fast, direct communication between voters and the government. We have the technology. People are on their phones all the fucking time. We have the technology. I wish we had something like that in our country, and hopefully someone starts implementing it for sure. Brilliant idea. Appreciate you. That was the last traitorous act from Cinema and Mansion. Cooked. They did lose their seat, which tells you they weren't serving the constituents. Did they lose their seats or did they leave? I don't know. Could be right. We'll look into it after this. The irresponsible, uneducated GOP Nazi Socialist Party loves giving away free money to choose. Yes, for sure. Based. Voting polling system via barcode you can scan on your phone. Voting polling system via barcode you can scan. You know, we all have something. We have like information on our phone that every phone has, right? The weather, for example. But we have Amber Alerts where information is sent to your phone immediately when like an emergency happens. I think knowing a bill that can change the government is an emergency. It's important. So why can't you have that same type of system apply where emergency information is sent to your phone, everybody's phone? It's like, new bill, look at it, vote. And if you don't, then obviously you're an idiot, but there's no excuse for you not to get your voice heard. And honestly, you want your voice heard so you can have direct results and understanding. And the representatives can have direct information like, what do the people want? Do they want this? Do they not want this? What are they thinking? Time for dinner. Glad I found. Appreciate Olivia. I hope you subscribe and are back to the channel when we do other streams and shows. We got a big podcast episode on Monday. Big one. Make sure you guys are there. I'm going to keep on hyping the one on Monday. Obviously, all my podcast shows are amazing, but the one on Monday is going to be a pretty cool one. I'm excited for that one. Appreciate it. The algorithm prevents that. Well, I'm not talking about an algorithm. I'm talking about direct information to your phone, like an Amber Alert. I'm not talking about an algorithm. I'm not talking about social media. They quit. Yeah, that's what I expected. That's what I thought they did quit. All right, let's finish this.
But at some point, supply and demand does become real. And if you don't have enough oil, the price goes up. And when the price goes up, so does the price of everything. And you get inflation.
Just subbed, even though you hate Trump, a One Piece fan is worth a sub. You know what, Fusion? I appreciate it.
And people get really poor. And that's going to happen.
Dr. Carlson right here with Stephen A, straight shooter with yours truly. I'm wondering right now, your life, I mean, you've stated, correct me if I'm wrong, that you voted Republican pretty much all your life, that you've disassociated, disconnected from the Republican Party, but it's not like you're about to vote for the Democrats either. I'm wondering how you feel right now as somebody who's confessed to being so wrong about the president, and more specifically, what I'm really wondering about, with what Trump is doing, that's not something Obama did. It's not something that
Happy, I completely agree with you, by the way.
George W. Bush did. I'm wondering, this president decided to take this action. Where are you now in terms of viewing him compared to the Democrats, in light of the fact this is not something that they've done, but yet it's something that he has done?
Well, it's something to some extent all American presidents have done since John F. Kennedy was murdered, which is follow the lead of a foreign country, Israel. So George W. Bush did do it. He took us into a regime change war against Iraq at the urging of Benjamin Netanyahu. I was there. So that's why we did that.
That's true.
Joe Biden funded the genocide of Gaza.
Maybe I
and by the way,
credit,
there are a lot of people.
I've had a pretty good conversation with right-wingers. I'm very convincing, and I'm also a very big dick. I'm very dickhead. I'm dickheadish. So I can have good conversations with people. And I understand people can kind of get fooled by the Trump administration. I think having that empathy to understand how people felt about the elections and the systems. I also understand why people on the left feel the way they do. But I'm not going to lie to capitulate to your feelings if what you're advocating for is harmful to the country and therefore harmful to you and harmful to people.
People in the Democratic Party were very mad about that and attacked Biden for that. Good for them. I didn't say a word. I was kind of not even aware it was happening, but that was happening, and they deserve credit for being honest and decent enough to oppose genocide. So every president has been bossed around by this tiny country. Bill Clinton got blackmailed by Israel over Monica Lewinsky. They had a tape of him having phone sex on Air Force One with Monica Lewinsky, and they told him they had it and said they were going to release it unless he took their side in the Wye River negotiation. So like, this has been going on a long time, but Trump just did something that's like quantum levels crazier and more destructive to the U.S., which is this war. How do you get out of this war? I don't see, and no one I know, including people who work at the White House and at the Pentagon, if you ask that question, like, how do we get out of this? They have no idea. So I'm really worried about it. I know I'm hated and called a Nazi for being against it, but it's bad enough that it's worth it to say it, I think.
Tucker Carlson, in 2021, you probably wrote that you hated Trump passionately. You later supported him in 2024. So here's the question: why should listeners see this latest break as principle rather than another pivot on your side, on your part? How do you answer that?
Well, I've had many pivots, and I've already explained two of them. I was wrong. You have, because I'm wrong a lot. I guess. I mean, I flatter myself and say I'm not wrong a lot, but I certainly am wrong sometimes, and wrong on big things. I was wrong on Trump, and I was wrong on the Iraq War, and I'm sure a million other things. But anyway, I mean, I don't know what to say. People can judge whether I'm sincere or not. I don't really know what I'm getting out of this. Actually, I've gotten really nothing out of any of it, and I'm not going to whine and say I've lost a lot, but some, including friendship. So I don't really know what my motive would be, but if I can't convince people, I can't. But I'm just telling you, I happened to be there and pretty close and saw a lot of stuff that is like so bad for this country. It's such a total betrayal. Now, I would just say quickly that, yeah, I got mad at Trump in a private text message, which Fox stole from me and sent to the New York Times. Like, that's a whole other story, kind of crazy. But I wrote that to one of my producers because Trump had made me mad in 2001, right after the election. Okay, I've been mad at people I love. But I decided that Trump was the option to the Republican leadership and the Democratic leadership. He wasn't a Republican. He was a challenge to the Republicans. He came from outside the system. This was how I thought of it. And as they tried to put him in jail and shoot him and all this stuff, I was like, see, it's totally real. It's not a fake thing. I mean, they're trying to put him in jail. That's what I thought. And I still kind of think that. But somewhere along the line, after that Butler shooting in Pennsylvania in July of 2024, he changed like 180 degrees and started doing things that he ran.
He never changed. He never changed. He was this guy the entire time. This is cope. Tucker Carlson trying to find an out, trying to find a rationale to justify his support and trying to make a distinction of an individual that never existed in the first place. He's always been like this. Give me a fucking break.
Against doing. And so like, you tell me what that is. I don't know. I don't think Trump's a great actor. I don't think he was lying before. I think something changed him.
Something changed for him after the Butler shooting. You just think it's just that simple. You don't have
I don't know
idea
if it's that simple.
Okay, but you have
I don't know if anything's simple. Well, I'll tell you what I do know. No, I don't. Just to be clear, I don't know. And if I did, I would say it instantly. I know that Trump shut down the investigation into the Butler shooting. It doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of material that the FBI gathered into Thomas Crooks, who he was talking to on his burner phone, who he was talking to online.
So is the idea here that Israel tried to kill Donald Trump, and then once Donald Trump found out, he started capitulating to Israel? So he didn't die. Is that what we're doing here? That the only reason why Donald Trump is insane now is because of Israel convinced him after threatening his life? Is that the game we're playing now? To alleviate all ownership of blame from Donald Trump. Give me a break. Give me a break. I don't know how much I can watch. This shit's boring. It's just Israel's evil. And Stephen A provides nothing in this conversation. Is there anything interesting here? Tucker on impeachment. I was wrong. What changed? Israel took over. Tucker responds to questions about Qatar. Could America need a third party? Please create a third party. I'm so tired of you insane people. What Tucker wants from America's next president. Epstein filed distrust in American leaders. Okay. Maybe Stephen A will care about this. This is such a fucking dog shit ass.
Why would you ever do that? Which they have definitely done at kind of scale for 60 years. Well, because when you're busy hating your neighbor on the basis of his race, they're busy looting.
Cool. No data centers in Hawaii. There's no data centers in Hawaii. Interesting.
Your country, which they have done. So it's a diversion tactic. And the truth is, if you say what I just said to the majority of Americans, why would you ever do that? Which they have definitely done at kind of scale for 60 years. Well, because when you're busy hating your neighbor on the basis of his race, they're busy looting your country, which they have done. So it's a diversion tactic. And the truth is, if you say what I just said to the majority of Americans of any color, they're like, well, of course that's right. Like, what's the purpose of having a government if it's not there to help you? Like, what? Then why do we have it? It's to help Bibi? They're like, what are you even talking about? Of course you're a nationalist. Of course you're an America first and only. Doesn't mean you hate other countries. Like, I'm not for bombing other countries most of the time unless they're bombing us. So like, I'm not against other countries. And by the way, I've been to almost every country on the planet and I like them all. So it's not that. It's like, why do you have a government? It's to look out for you and your interests. That's why you pay taxes. This whole conversation is like bonkers. But the race stuff is the most upsetting. And what you see when you really drill down, because it divides people permanently. The Democratic Party has spent 60 years telling non-white voters that whites are the problem and that whites hate them because they're not white. That's a free.
Okay, Stephen A., you finally have something you can talk about. You've been letting Tucker Carlson yap about both sides of the problem. You've been yelling yap about Israel controls America, controls Trump. All of this yapping, all of it. Stephen A., he's talking about race now. And now this is something, obviously, I know Tucker Carlson plays the white victim card all the fucking time. Stephen A., this is your opportunity. Say something. Please say something.
You can lie, dude. That's a lie.
Okay, but what about
and a lot of black people believe it?
But Tucker, as a black man, what about from an historical perspective, looking at slavery, looking at Jim Crow laws, looking at the iniquitous acts of a white populace that existed in this country, and simply acknowledging, look, that happened, that existed, and we could never come close to letting something like that happen again, policy or otherwise. What's wrong with doing that?
Well, it is happening again.
No, what I mean is it divisive? Is it
divisive? Yeah. Jim Crow is happening again at a larger scale.
Yes, it is.
We have more racial quotas now against whites than we ever had against blacks in the South. And in federal contracting and college admissions, in hiring in private companies and public companies. It's like, how about the government treats everybody the same? That's the lesson of the civil rights movement. Let's treat everyone the same.
Stay right there. What if I said to you, Tucker, you got a 50-yard head start? And guess what? You've been operating at a 50-yard head start for a lengthy period of time. And in order to equal the playing field, I've got to get a head start to be able to catch up to you. Because essentially, that's what you have a black populace or a minority populace in this country articulating to some degree anyway. I understand your point.
I have the numbers on that. So
two wrongs don't make a right.
Right. Okay.
I'm saying two wrongs don't make a right. I get that part. But if you're talking about, there's a lot of folks within this country that are of that mindset. And I respectfully disagree, but the key word is respectfully because I understand where you're coming from. I'm just simply saying, if you've been operating as a society, as a community with a head start for a lengthy period of time, how is the playing field ever supposed to be equaled if we were never given a come up? I mean, at some point in time, that premise has to be addressed. Does it not?
Right. I mean, look, I would say, I think it's really important to articulate why racial discrimination is bad. And because it's bad, it's always bad, no matter who commits it, period.
Okay.
Period. Mm-hmm. It's inherently bad to judge people and to punish people on the basis of their skin color. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I agree with that.
You do agree with
what
that?
I'm saying.
Okay, then
I totally agree.
Well, then we're done.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm simply pointing out that, again, if the objective is to have a fair and equitable society for all, how is that supposed to be accomplished if folks are operating from behind the 8 ball because of years of policies and things that subjugated the community in this country? How is that supposed to happen?
I think that people whose ancestors were dragged here against their will in slavery are at a disadvantage. However, I think it's a lot more complicated than you're saying. I think that does hurt people generationally. Clearly it does.
A lot more complicated. What he said was a complicated notion based off generalized factors that play into the overall premise. You didn't make a simplistic notion. Honestly, your notion was more simplistic, referring back to slavery. It is referring back to slavery and then the history and then the barriers there, which is basically what Stephen A said. So, Tucker, I think you're just yapping. I'm not gonna lie. Continue.
However, the idea that it's all whites are racist, then you tell me why whites and
Who the fuck said all whites are racist? Or did that come out of your mouth? Did it come out of my mouth? Did it come out of Stephen A's mouth? Did it come out of Tucker's mouth? Nobody. Other than yours, actually, Tucker. You're the one who brought that up. So we went from understanding that race is an issue, complex, disadvantage for Black people, barriers, policies that made it harder for Black people, and then all whites are racist is the conclusion you came out of from that? Huh? Interesting.
you can check the Department of Labor stats on this if you want. They're on the internet. Whites are like, I don't know, fifth or sixth for income in the United States. So white people are not the rich people. Nigerians, your average Nigerian in the United States makes more than your average white. So tell me if there's this like system. So I guess what I'm also saying is that like this country has become so genuinely diverse. Like when I was a kid, it was Black people, white people, some Hispanics, very few Asians, and really no one else. And the Black people, their families have been here as long as mine, hundreds of years. I mean, their families were dragged here in colonial times, some of them. So that was a different picture than what we're looking at now. Now we're going to get to a place by the time, in a couple more decades where the majority of Black people in the United States are not the descendant of American slaves. So then it's like, so do we owe affirmative action to an Eritrean when he arrives on a visa program? I don't think so. So like this whole thing is nuts, actually. So the only solution is to say slavery is always wrong. Discrimination on the basis of race is always wrong. And so let's stop doing it because it's wrong. It'd be like saying, and they do say it, well, you know, a lot of people who survived the Nazi genocide moved to Israel and their grandchildren, you know, have a right to be upset about that. Okay, got it. But those same people are committing genocide. So it was wrong when it happened to grandparents. It's wrong when they're doing it because it's just wrong. There are universal principles that if we don't defend, we will wind up in the world that we left when we started this country, which is the powerful people get to do whatever they want and everyone else has to just deal with it. And I don't want to live in that country.
I agree with you when you say there's universal principles that we should just uphold. And that obviously, you know, there are things that Nicholas acts that we should absolutely speak against no matter who it's for or against. Absolutely. I'm totally with you.
Exactly.
The flip side to it, the flip side to it, however, is that one could easily also argue that lets off the hook those who have benefited and have positioned themselves to be in positions of power and influence where they can subjugate a vast majority of folks in our society, as we've witnessed people doing for decades upon decades. You can make the argument that they're already at an advantage and they're getting left off the hook by doing exactly what Tucker Carlson suggests, because what you want to do is start with a clean slate and just erase all that has happened. I don't mean literally erase it from the mind's eye. I'm just talking about starting from scratch and going forward when we can never start from scratch going forward. Tucker Carlson, you know that.
But yeah, I mean, look, this has been going on for over 60 years. I don't think it's actually helped that much. It's made people hate each other, but
it's made not everybody hate each other. It made very specific group of people hate because they've been fooled that it's an actual problem. Stephen A., you can articulate pretty quickly, pretty easily why the whole thing that Tucker Carlson is saying is absolute nonsense. I always thought this was a multifaceted problem that takes a combination of the efforts of the Black community in combination with the systems that be, and in combination with the majority population willing and being accepting of the growth of minority populations in America. What the reality is, what happened is that policies were pushed. Of course, policies were pushed. And then the reaction is that these policies were racist. The idea of giving the minority population more opportunity to equal the playing field because of the historical oppression, the historical discrimination, and then the active clear bias and stereotyping that takes place now when it comes to a police having a generalized notion of a Black person being a criminal or a Hispanic being a criminal or any person of color being a criminal, or this generalized notion that this person is more prone to criminality, therefore their sentencing can be deemed a sentence based off a biased perception. Or it can be the situation where a person is trying to go for a job and they have a certain names like, oh, they're not qualified, or they look a certain way, oh, they're not qualified. Or it could be a situation where it's like, you know what, I'm going to give the opportunity to people who are like me, people who are close to me. You know who are like me and close to me? White people, white friends, of course, the people who live next to me, the people who I see all the time. And then anytime we try to give more opportunity to people of color, people who are living this positive circumstances, without the resources, without the connections, without networking, without the name recognition, without being an established identity in a system that is more accepting to the identity itself. The more we're trying to equal out that playing field to allow that opportunity, you guys got upset. You guys try to play the victim. You guys try to pretend that you guys are the ones suffering from the system at hand. So it's not simple in that way. And it's annoying when we try to have a worthwhile conversation to create and fix these issues, or at the very least mitigate them, improve these scenarios to build more wealth in these areas, and it's always met with pushback. It's always met with pushback. So when you have the advantage when it comes down to the population, when you have the advantage policy-wise where you can, degrade their vote, when you have the advantage when it comes down to you being in places of power, when you have the advantage of like the number of people who can be active in the system, when you have the advantage when the perception of you is seen as better as the perception of me, then how are we going to have an equal playing field? So currently, we have these issues. Historically, we have these issues. We create ways to give more opportunities for these locations, and it's just met with backlash. And we have idiots like Jay Dizzle go like DEI is dangerous and racist. It's just not true. He has no idea what the fuck DEI means, but he heard it from Trump, and then his whole opinion got completely conformed by it. Imagine like in One Piece as a Trump supporter. Hey man, shout out One Piece. Shout out One Piece, man.
Also obscuring the true crisis in the country, which has nothing to do with race and has to do with economics. And the people benefiting from the private equity scams and the crypto scams and all the other scams underway in the American economy. We don't really produce anything. We just lend money at high interest, sell real estate again and again. Those people are getting richer than everyone else, the billionaire class. And they don't want to deal with questions about how exactly this works. Why are they paying half the taxes that you're paying as a wage earner? Like, I don't really get that. And they don't want to have to defend it. So instead, they're like, the real problem is race. And these whites are just bad. And they've taken all the stuff. Well, actually, if you look at the numbers, that's insane. One of the biggest groups of poor people in this country is white. Are they privileged? I don't think they are. So like, it's not about race.
It's not a singular problem. Economics is an issue. Economics is an issue, and somehow, oh my goodness, I don't want to go on another rant. It's unfortunate that the only conversation Stephen A. Smith can engage with here is regarding race, but he's not able to actually like defend his points. He's allowing Tucker Carlson to muddy up the narrative without addressing the core points that you're making here. I think this is the biggest test of like Stephen A's capability in engaging in political debate. All right, you're gonna have a political show and not really pushing back. You're just gonna like allow him to spew about Israel. Okay, fine, whatever. But now you're talking about race. This is supposed to be your wheelhouse, Stephen A. You have to force him to address the points that you're making. Force him to address the problems that currently exist. Force him to understand this type of solutions. Unless his solution is like, well, you're SOL, shit out of luck. We can't do anything about it. Then force him to say that. You can't just like play it off. Political debate is interactive. Address each other's points.
We should treat all American citizens equally. That's the whole point of the civil rights movement. That's the whole point of the Constitution. And
that's not what happens in real time. And Stephen A., you can name so many examples of that.
Not, and we should. And then just say, look, it's not about ignoring the crimes of the past, which we should not do. We should never lie about anything. It's just about being honest about what's actually happening. And the real problems stem from the way our tax code is structured. And most people don't even think about it because no one in the media ever talks about it. It's like, really? So if I invest money, I pay half the tax rate as if I go to work. So are we saying that it's twice as virtuous to invest or to get inherited money as it is to have a job? That's what we are saying. Because we tax things we want to discourage. That's why cigarettes are expensive. So like, are you really going to say with a straight face that you're like twice as good a person because you inherited money as I am because I go to work every day? Because that's what
now he cares about wealth and millionaires, bro. That's just fucking a grift. Now he cares about it.
Right. And so in a normal country, you just like have a revolution. People are like, I'm not putting up with this. But in our country, because every conversation is controlled by the media filter, we don't even know what's happening. And so people are like, well, my life sucks. It must be the whites, or and some whites are like, it must be the blacks or whatever. It's like, this is racial foment. This is racial conflict, which is.
Stephen A. doesn't know. He's just trying to create this new avenue, being a political pundit, but he has no idea what the fuck he's doing. None.
Created by the people who are taking.
You know what? Stephen A. Smith, after watching this conversation with Tucker Carlson, I've seen your conversations with Ben Shapiro, with Dean Withers. I've seen you moderate with Royce White and Isaiah Martin and Officer Tatum and another individual. I forget his name. I do apologize. You did a really good job. The reality is, Stephen A. Smith, you don't know what you're doing. You don't really know the policies. You really don't know how to structure a political debate. You don't understand the value of certain conversations. And I give you some credence in the sense that you want to provide a nuance or maybe a moderate voice in the space of chaotic politics. But if you're not able to create that foundational level of understanding and reality, truth, and goodness, then at this point you're just becoming a funnel for dangerous rhetoric being pushed out if it's not being pushed back against. So my request for you, Stephen A, is I'm not going to tell you to stop doing your show. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're a grown man. You're very successful. I suggest bringing in other individuals to maybe help you navigate what you're doing here. Maybe give you some tips, maybe, teach you some things regarding the political space. And I do think maybe getting another voice to help you make sure that the politics that are being preached is understood on its larger consequences and implications. Now, Stephen A. Smith, regardless of my issues with you, and honestly, I don't really like a lot of things that you've been doing recently. I've been very upset. I haven't been happy. If you need someone to help you out, I'm open. Let me know. Let me pull out my McCants and go out and call you out to maybe extend an olive branch. But the reality is, I know that you're going to keep on growing your platform, but your platform is becoming very MAGA adjacent, very much so. So we gotta start steering that in a proper direction. And I do think, Stephen A, you want to do things properly, hopefully. So that's my pitch to Stephen A. Smith. Hopefully, whether it's me or someone else, someone steers him in the right direction, because all these politics it's not benefiting anybody. All these political conversations have not been beneficial.
All the money.
Whether anyone agrees or disagrees with you, I think, especially me sitting here talking to you, I really, really appreciate the fact that you're willing to tackle any issue, and I'm thankful for that.
So after everything he just said, undermining the issues of Black people and their history, your response is, I appreciate you tackling this issue. That's it. We're good. We're good to go. This is exactly what I expected out of a conversation. I'm not surprised. And a bunch of Tucker Carlson fans are rallying up as Tucker Carlson starts building his presidential campaign. Man, these are our political pundits, ladies and gentlemen. These are our political pundits. Well, I don't have a lot of time left. I do plan to run some errands. I plan to go to the movie theater to watch the Evil Dead movie. So that is all we got for today. I was going to watch this Jubilee of Fat Chet debate about Israel, but I'm so tired of the Israel conversation. I am tired. I'm done. I'm not watching this. Get Hunter Biden in here. You know what? I should send a message to Hunter Biden. I should send a message to him. I like that wave cap look like Scorpion. Your comparisons are a pretty funny, Fusion. I hate the Israel combo too. It's just it gets old. It gets old. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you coming in. Even bitch ass motherfuckers like Jay Dizzle. Appreciate you coming in, engaging in the conversation. Subscribing to the channel, following all the socials. Make sure you guys check out the podcast, follow all my clips. And I'm gonna keep on saying it. Make sure you guys are here for the Monday podcast live stream. As of right now, everything is a go. I probably will set up the scheduled live stream for it on Sunday. And yeah, I have a big conversation for Monday. We're going to be talking about the House of Representatives and how we should uncap the House. So if you know, that should give you some hints on who I plan to talk to on Monday. But yeah, appreciate you, Fusion, even though you're a Donald Trump supporter somehow. If you don't know, Trump supporters hate Israel too, as the politicians. Some Trump supporters hate Israel. It's like 50-50. Republican Party is like 50% regarding Israel. So for sure. And KMA, pleasure. Pleasure, of course. MAGA Mike. I don't know who that is. But I hope you guys enjoyed. You have a good one. Take care. Peace.